execution, trying to get the city to start thinking. Not talking about it anymore, just to get actually because I'm going to finish line. And then my water bill. I have Sam Jones to the coffee shop in town. And nobody ever told me anything. They said, turn the water on today. I was just turning it off, and I did. And I took my water bill. Oh, that's sorry. We're not construction, we're not doing water. Then they called me 3 weeks later and said, no, it's the usage of the meter size. You have a 2-inch main. I'm like, 100 2-inch main, we need a 1/4 inch. I said, well, you switch it out.
Not every time.
By the time they told me,
He gets to keep the
I was up to $300 in fees, and only $100 in water use. Trying to get that squashed.
Good evening, St. Helenans and visitors. I'm going to call our meeting to order, the regular City Council meeting of June 24, 2025. And I'll look to our clerk. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Doring.
Here.
Vice Mayor Deasy. Councilmember Barrick.
Here.
Spataroto. And Summers.
Present.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We are on to item 4 of our agenda, titled Adoption of the Agenda. I'll look to the clerk to see if there are any changes, amendments that we need to note.
Item 7.2, Measure H Oversight Committee Chair Report will not be heard tonight. We'll hear that at a future meeting.
All right. With that one note, I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
All right, there's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of adopting the agenda with the one noted item from the clerk? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? None. Okay. Our agenda is adopted, and now we are moving on to public forum. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public forum. Each person's comment shall be limited to 4 minutes. Each person is entitled to speak on any non-agendized item only once at any meeting. Brief questions by council members for clarifications may be posed and answered, and council members may make requests that items be placed on future agendas. But in accordance with state law, no substantive discussion or action may take place unless and until the matter properly appears on the agenda. Is there any public comment on matters that are not on the agenda? Yes. Mr. Dean?
Yes.
And don't try to weave anything in.
Nothing
No,
can be
I'm-
weaved in. Nothing
Mr.
can be
Dean,
weaved.
how are you?
Good. How's everybody
Good.
doing? I actually just wanted to talk tonight real quick about execution and getting things kind of over the finish lines at times. I was a big part down in the city of Long Beach of meeting with groups and getting together and revitalizing areas and neighborhoods and stuff, like, a very barbed wire homeless area we turned into a design district that's now bustling with coffee shops, and New Balance has their think tank headquarters there and all this stuff. And it was because we got together as a group and then we actually executed on what we talked about. So I'll tell you about a story up in Calistoga real quick. So when I got to Calistoga in 2017, in 2018 we started forming these downtown revitalization groups. And there was all this talk about removing things and new trees and all this stuff. And for 2 years, we met as community leaders, other hotel owners, business owners, city council, the city manager, people all sat in on it. We all sat there and we discussed all these great ideas. We arm wrestled on some ideas. We talked about trees. We talked about all these things. We hired a consultant. We did feasibility studies. We got it to the finish line. Spent $150,000 in 2 years doing this. City council members changed. The mayor changed. Everything's gone. The entire thing is dead. And it's dead and buried at this point. And it was like all that energy, all that effort is spent, and all of a sudden, everybody's agenda changes, and now all they care about up there is the fairgrounds. So When I signed up to do Sam's General Store here, I sat in meetings in the Parks and Recs building about downtown revitalization, about wayfinding signs, about all the things that are needed here in St. Helena, to only find out that things are kind of now on hold, the money's earmarked, but things aren't happening. And I just want to say the most important thing that we can do for our community is actually execute on the things that we talk about and that we meet on. And we don't let history constantly repeat itself every time council changes, mayors change, agendas change. It's like if we put something forward and we all talk about it, let's actually get it to the finish line and make it happen. We need wayfinding signs. I'll tell you, I told Maya this too, I've broken the rule on a Saturday morning. I've put my little sandwich board out there on the corner of Adams and Main. I put a little yellow balloon, my sales go up. It's that simple. When the gelato lady puts her little sign out there, her sales go up. But all we need is some city signage that says coffee, gelato, wine tasting, frame store, whatever it is that's behind there. Nobody who doesn't live in this town knows that Goose and Gander is a bar restaurant right down the street if you're just walking on the street. But if it said bar restaurant Goose and Gander, oh, let's go walk down that way and check it out. That's really all we need. Some support. We need to actually execute on a plan that we've all met about and talked about, Parker's Rex building, and everybody arm wrestled and broke out sessions and all these things. Let's actually try to get some things over the finish line. That's all I wanted to talk about and give you the example of what happened in Calistoga, which is really disappointing to all of us business owners because nothing is going to happen in downtown because all they care about is the fairgrounds. And it was a big waste of our time and a big waste of taxpayer money, 150 grand.
Thank you.
That's it. You're welcome.
I know there's not immediate gratification with a response from your council, but that's how the rules are. We can't really get into the detail. I'm happy to talk with you more about that offline, Mr. Dean. All right. Others wishing to talk to your city council tonight? I note a couple of public comments, written public comments that we received, one from Bucky Swisher, Luli, is that how you pronounce that? Luli Lyman, okay. I've read those. Thank you for your written public comments. Seeing no other folks approaching the podium, I will close the public forum and we'll move on to item 6, reports by staff, city council, future agenda items, and AB 1234 reports. Unlike most of the many meetings we've had before, Mr. Mello, we didn't have a closed session tonight. So I won't need to look to Mr. Walsh for a report, but I will look to you for staff reports.
Thank you, Mr.
Good
Mayor.
evening.
Good evening. We have one staff report. There's an update by Director Jens regarding the summer concerts.
Welcome, Mr. Johns. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm here to update on 2 items. So summer is upon us, and so we officially kicked off the 2025 Summer Concert Series last Wednesday, and just want to remind you and all the community members that will go on for the next 7 weeks now. We do take a break next Wednesday, but we will have a performance on the 4th of July. So every Wednesday, minus next week, we'll be out in Lyman Park from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the Summer Concert Series. Tomorrow night, we have a band called Petty Rocks, Tom Petty cover band, so it should be a lot of fun, and we invite everyone to join us out there. Also, just around the corner is the 4th of July. So next Friday, we are gearing up for our Independence Day celebrations. So just want to notify everyone of our schedule. So at 4:30, our festivities kick off with the annual red, white, and blue bike ride that will start at Miley Park and end up in Lyman Park, just in time for the St. Helena Community Band to their performance at 5:30 p.m. in Lyman Park. Festivities at Crane Park begin at 6 o'clock. So the park will be alive with family activities, food vendors, live music, inflatables, and that'll go on until about 9 o'clock, all leading up to the fireworks display, which is scheduled to go off right around 9:30. Our team's continuing to watch the weather. We're in communication with our fire department, public works department, in preparations, but we anticipate at this point to continue moving forward with the 4th of July, and we hope to see everyone at least at some aspect of those festivities next week.
All right. Questions from my colleagues? Ms. Summers.
Doctor of Parks, Dave Jans. Good to see you. So, I know we have food in the music in the parks, and then are we going to have hot food at the 4th of July festivities?
We will, yes.
And is there anything stopping us from having hot food and vendors at bocce nights? What's their process there if that's going to happen? can that happen?
That's a good question. We've had some discussions internally in the States back to last year about kind of our mobile food operations. And so I need to circle back with our team on where that process is. Right now, typically bringing in food vendors is linked to special events, as we want to make sure first and foremost we're supporting downtown businesses. Doesn't mean it's precluded, but I'd have to see where we sit, as I know some of our staff in our community development department were working on that last year and working in tandem with the Parks and Rec department. So a long-winded way of saying maybe possible. I need to look into that, and I can get you an answer. And I think the next part is if that bocce community would be interested. I think there's some that certainly might. I know there's others that have become quite accustomed to bringing their spreads out there. So I think that would be something for us to investigate with our bocce committee if there would be ample business to go around for any vendors to go out there, but certainly something we can look into.
Yeah, and let me know if I can be of any help in the process.
Absolutely. Thank
Meeting
you.
up with the bocce committee or whatever it takes. Just let me know. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
So speaking of food, where will the root beer floats be served?
Excellent question.
Crane or Lyman?
Excellent question. The root
Okay.
beer floats will be back at Lyman Park. They've
Okay.
become a time-honored tradition to be in tandem with the St. Helena Community Band's performance at Lyman, so that will be there.
The free root beer floats,
hey,
right?
Courtesy of your local A&W.
I'll be
Thank
dishing
you.
those out, so I need to know where I need to show up, so that's right. Okay. Other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Johns.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Mello? That's it, Mr. Mayor. All right. Now looks like we're moving on to item 7. 7.2, as we know, will not be heard tonight. That's the Measure H Oversight Committee Chair Report, but we will be having a report on Parks and Recreation. Mr. Mello. I know Mr. Thompson is here to make that report. They let you out of the shop?
Yeah, just in time to get here.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. There we go. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors and city staff for this opportunity to present a brief overview of who and what the parks...
Can you move that mic just a little bit towards you? Yeah, there you go. That's fine. That's great.
That
Yep,
better?
that works.
But who and what the Parks and Recreation Commissioners have been undertaking this past year. Next slide, please. Thank you. It's the aim of the Commissioners to promote all parks and recreation activities in order for a positive outcome for residents and all visitors alike. The Commission as Doug Bushan as our Chairman, Jim Anderson as Vice Chair, whose position is vacant as at July 1st, Courtney Andrain, whose position is also vacant as at July 1st, Stephanie Smithers, myself, John Thompson, and this year we've had Henry Ray as our Youth Advisory Member. This is a recent initiative and one that's been proving very useful as Henry's been able to, one, come and learn around what the Commission does, great opportunity for him as an individual, but moreover, very useful for him to provide input into the Commissioners to represent that youth and the community that he tends to liaise with. So great outcome and hopefully one which we continue to do in coming years. Our role is that we serve as volunteers in an advisory capacity for the community. This consists of advising city leadership, which we do around parks maintenance, development opportunities and improvements across all parks and recreation services. Most of this is done with Director Jans and his team, but we also liaise very closely with Deputy Director Milton from Public Works. There's a whole lot of close collaboration between those two groups and the Commissioners. We review and recommend policies, budgets, and other programming activities. One that you will be seeing and hearing tonight is our recommendation for the Porch Fest in September, which we've deliberated twice at recent meetings, our last 2 meetings. We engage the public. All Commission members are residents here of St. Helena, and we're able to engage with the public through our day-to-day interactions with residents, with local visitors, local businesses and visitors alike. And finally, we promote collaboration. We need to make sure that the community is being heard, the city are hearing that, local organisations are having the opportunity to benefit and support that as well through that enhancement of not just recreational offerings, but other things that I'll talk about on the next slide. Our priorities. Number one is probably the most important, community engagement and recreation programs. We're here to ensure that the residents and visitors have maximum utilisation of the wonderful services and programs that we have here in St Helena. Secondly, we provide strategic support for parks and recreation management. Basically, what that means is we get to ask the difficult questions around policy, process, and indeed cost. And then the commissioners all have subcommittee projects where one or two commissioners get together for an initiative and try and push that through with the local community, residents, and local businesses. The first one, so we've got a number here, we've got 5 initiatives that I'd like to call out that's been undertaken throughout the past year. Equitable recreation, this is something that we've put at the top of our plan in terms of expanding outreach programs for underrepresented areas of the community, and in particular Latino residents, where we have a great example there just on Saturday night at the Cameo, commencement of the Spanish film series. We've also seen some great success around community soccer night, which is not only equitable for individuals, but across different groups, different age groups as well. We are very fortunate that we have some great community hubs. Those are the parks, the larger parks that we have, that bring all kinds of people together for sports, events, and just generally as gathering spaces. A great example of that is the much improved summer concerts that Director Jans just mentioned, kicked off already at Lyman Park. This includes significant collaboration with Nimbus Arts, food trucks that do promote local vendors, and an amazing array of musical acts over the coming weeks. Fiscal responsibility, which we all have to take seriously. We've kind of adopted a less is more approach when we're working with both Director Jans and Deputy Director Milton, in so much as less is more. Yes, we need to do things in our parks, but let's look at ways that we can decrease future maintenance costs. So let's plant plants that require much lower water intake. Let's plant trees or shrubs or bushes that don't need the annual or biannual pruning. So we're thinking about how we can reduce that future maintenance whilst creating a safe and great environment within the parks. I've mentioned before Public Works collaboration. We do this a lot. Recent examples here are the skate park repairs up at Crane Park, overall general playground improvements, Lyman Park upgrade, which is absolutely fantastic, and the just recently completed Jacob Miley landscaping upgrade, which again actually helps the youth of the community. They have somewhere to go and kick a soccer ball around or run around on the park there. It would be coming up to the end of the presentation now, but it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the significant work, and it's probably worth going to the next slide if we could, of these people here, Director Jans and his team, because without them and the collaboration with the Public Works team, we wouldn't have the amazing facilities that we do have here in St Helena that we should all make more use of. But without Dave specifically, we wouldn't be pushing through as many of the initiatives and opportunities that we are doing. And one thing I should have mentioned before I moved on here is the future goals. It's really important for us around enhancing trails and open spaces, and that's going to be part of the master plan for Parks and Recreation that will be discussed with Council in future. In the short term and some immediate opportunities, both Commissioner Smithers and I are working on some opportunities where we can open those up as part of what will hopefully be the master plan. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Vice Mayor Dizzy, any questions?
I don't know if I have any questions, but, well, I did have a question.
I was just reading your body language and I misread it.
Sorry, I don't, unless, is this a recent picture and is Ryan back? That was my honest question.
No, it's not a recent recent picture.
I actually don't have any questions. I think Parks and Rec does a great job. It's a great team, it's a great board, and thank you and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you for your time as a commissioner as well, Councillor Deasy.
Mr. Summers?
Hey, good to see you, sir. So I've been on the, I've been a parks commissioner, parks chairman, been a liaison to the parks as a councilman. I'm just curious from your standpoint, what's it like not having a council person as a liaison and sort of how things add up in this new process of showing up, on a biannual, what's your feeling kind of since we started this?
Councillor Summers, I think there's pros and cons of both.
Yeah.
It's great to have a council member actually at the meetings to hear what's going on in the discussions. More recently, we're getting a lot more community engagement. So having a more frequent opportunity for council member to then come back and maybe present or support here is fantastic. The other side of that is it's a great opportunity for commissioners to come here biannually, twice a year, and talk through specific initiatives and provide updates that we're doing. I'm very fortunate, I suppose, that our chairman, Doug, is actually on vacation in Kenya right now. I get the opportunity to do this, but I think it's a great opportunity for each commissioner to be able to come and present here to you all. So I think either way, there's a great opportunity for whichever option that we choose, and maybe there's a mixed hybrid in the future.
Yeah, I like that. Perhaps maybe we should look at, doing a hybrid where we work together a little more closely, especially at this time,
Yeah.
community-wise.
I think so, Councillor Summers, yeah.
Yeah, copy that. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to report that the Parks and Recreation Commission and all things Parks and Rec get a much higher rating than your city council. So you're like at 99%. Favorable rate, and that's my own survey. I did that of at least 20 people. So, unbelievable amount of work. The hands-on work. Your commission is really an interesting commission where folks are really highly engaged in a lot of different things. So, express my confidence and my goodwill to the community, to the commission. You're doing a great job, and thank you for your public service.
Thank you, Mayor Doring.
All right. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Camello, on the presentations or anything else we need to think about there? Okay. All right. There are no staff briefings tonight under item 8, so we're moving on to the consent calendar, which is a lengthy consent calendar. Members of the council or the public present at the meeting may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of considering alternative action, for extended discussion, or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. And so I don't know if there are any council members who wish to pull an item for discussion. We have a heavy calendar tonight, and so that's why we have a number of these on consent, but happy to take direction from my colleagues or anybody in the public who wishes to have further discussion. Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Make a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
I will second.
There's a motion by Ms. Spadaroto, second by Mr. Barrick to adopt the consent calendar. Madam Clerk, we'll have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Spadaroto,
Yes.
Barrick,
Yes.
Summers,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
and Mayor Doring.
Yes. I did want to note that we did receive a lengthy letter from the St. Helena Employees Association that was put onto the calendar. I did have a chance to read that lengthy letter, and I appreciate the letter. More to come there. More collaboration, more work. That is always a challenging situation where you have an employees association writing a letter to your city council, but we are happy to collaborate and receive information as it comes in. So, all right. Okay, now we're moving on to item 10. Here we are already, 10.1, approval of a resolution adopting new planning fees in response to new planning application types. I'll let you introduce the staff member, Mr. Camello. I assume that would be Mr. Rosa. But.
That's right.
All right.
Director Rose?
Say something nice about Mr. Rosa, and then we'll move on. Mr. Rosa, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. The item for your consideration tonight is bringing new planning fees forward for your consideration. Some of the background on this, and I know the previous council had some lengthy discussions about housing impact fees and other impact fees. These are specifically related to applications that are filed in Planning Division. And a lot of this, the impetus was the new zoning code that we passed in 2023, requested a lot of new applications for streamlining, such as a minor use permit and other similar ministerial applications. So that created a need for new applications and to set some new fees. So we contracted with Willdan earlier this year to help us study some specific fees that needed a fee basis. And one of the upsides of this, and why we're hoping to get this approved tonight, is that, as you know, we're looking to go online with our paperless permitting. And so part of the wonderful execution of that is that the customer can actually select from the drop-down with their application and pay all their fees online. So we would like to be able to automate the fees for this handful of planning applications. One other thing to note is that as you'll be seeing on the next slide, what we have is the fully justified fee and the recommended fee. The council has the discretion to choose the appropriate fee as long as it's less than what the fully justified cost is. So we can talk about that more in a moment. One thing I did want to bring to your attention, that we did propose an amendment to this table post the report being published, with 3 items that are highlighted. I know that still might be hard to read, but essentially the sidewalk dining permit application, the urban lot split, and the zoning compliance request, those technically were not new fees that came out of the zoning code update. They were pre-existing, but the challenge was they were never formally adopted by council and incorporated into the master fee schedule. So I did want to highlight that the full cost fee is still the same as what's in the report, but staff is recommending on those 3 that we actually go with a slightly, in many cases, a much less suggested fee, which aligns with those applications that are currently online and what we're saying the fee is for them currently today. So just walking through the matrix there, our art mural permit is, as you may know, is something that we passed about 1.5 years ago, and we don't want to set a fee for that just because we want to encourage applications for that. The certificate of the extent of legal nonconforming use is a new application that essentially helps the city create a baseline documentation for larger existing uses that currently don't have a use permit. Sutter Home is a perfect example of that. And we actually do have that application pending right now. Density bonus, I think that speaks for itself, but it previously did not have a fee associated with it. Same with a historic demolition permit. The historic overlay, creating a new one, also delisting, essentially involve the same process, so that's why the fee mirrors for both of them. We are recommending, that was one of the fees that we actually were recommending that be considered to be less, because personally thought the close to $16,000 for that was high. So again, but that's just a staff recommendation, and the council has the discretion to even move that lower if they so speak or so desire. And then the preliminary housing application development, we don't charge a fee for that because that's essentially the SB 330 application. We want to encourage projects to come through the housing streamlining pipeline. And the minor use permit is similar to conditional use permit, but that is essentially a staff level approval that was created in the new zoning code for streamlining. An example of something that we've done with a minor use permit that didn't used to be is restaurants. Restaurants, all of them in the prior code had to be a full formal conditional use permit in front of the Planning Commission. So now we have still findings that are made, but we don't have to do a big public hearing for those. And a minor modification is similar to a variance, but essentially it allows an applicant that is just slightly over the height or the setback dimensional standards to request that be approved on a staff level as long as the findings can be made. And again, that's a streamlining enhancement. And then the sidewalk dining permit, I think that speaks for itself that, we want to encourage businesses to put tables and chairs out that meet our requirements, but we don't want to have that fee be so heavily handed that it prevents business owners from wanting to move forward to do that. Pre-zoning for annexation, that is a more involved process. I mean, that's why it's one of our higher fees, because it involves a lot of coordination with, the city attorney, potentially LAFCO. It requires full public hearings before the Planning Commission and the council. So it does require a lot of staff time behind the scenes, which went into the numbers. And reestablishment of an abandoned non-conforming use. That's when a use is abandoned after 60 days, it a lot of times loses its land use rights, if you will. And so if a subsequent business owner wants to come in and say, hey, I want to get this business going again, what's the process to do that? We have an application to help them reestablish their use. And then urban lot split is similar to what the recent legislation for SB 9 is. It allows an applicant to ministerially come in and split their lot without having to go through the full Planning Commission and council process. But on the backside, it still requires a lot of time from both, particularly planning and public works, to make sure it still meets all the zoning code and subdivision requirements. And then a zoning compliance request is simply where a lot of times a realtor will call us and say, can you confirm what the zoning is on this property? I just need it for an appraisal. So we didn't want to be too heavy-handed with that fee either. Next slide, please. So with the recommended action, what I would recommend is that we have a slight amendment to that. So the approval of the resolution adopting the new planning application fees with amended fees noted in the staff presentation, which will take effect September 1st, 2025. I also do want to mention if you have any questions about the methodology that helped prepare this report, I do have Preeti Patel with Wildan on Zoom who can help address any of those related questions. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rosa. Any initial clarifying questions from my colleagues? I'm going to open it for public comment. We'll bring it back, but are no questions right now. Okay, let me take a moment to open the public hearing and invite public comment on this fee update process. Ms. DeMann, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Life is good.
I'm Elaine DeMann. I have a question about the minor modification fee, because as I recall, and maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, but as I recall, the mega mansion on Fir Hill was presented to the Planning Commission as a minor modification. And I just wasn't clear, because I seem to hear you say that this would allow that kind of approval at a staff level without it going before the Planning Commission or the community or anything else. And that was definitely more than a minor modification. That's my question.
All right. Thank you, Ms. DeMann. Mr. Rosa.
Yes, sir. Happy to bring clarification to that. So the 2126 Madrona large house actually preceded these zoning code changes and preceded even the and thus preceded the creation of the minor modification process. So I can assure you that a large house, first of all, still, even in the old code, still, first of all, triggers major design review and full public hearing. And then should a project have, a 1% variation, for example, on height, that would be something that if they're already requiring a design review, we would bring the minor design review for that small variation that doesn't trigger a full variance to the commission. So it would, if it's a new construction, it's automatically going to go to the Planning Commission as a design review. These are things that the minor modification, where it would just be a staff level, might apply to someone doing an addition that meets all the code except maybe one area. And the standard for a minor modification is much less than what you'd be allowed to do with a variance request.
Other comments from the community? All right, bring it back to the city council for discussion. I did have one, I guess a couple questions, and I'll turn to my colleagues. Refresh my recollection on the sidewalk dining permit. By the comments you made, it seems that you have concluded that a policy decision has been made either formally at the council level or through the zoning code. Is there that we are in favor of promoting sidewalk dining? Is that correct?
Yeah, we've actually had a sidewalk dining permit technically for many years, but what we found out as we were going through all of our fees, that for some reason never was put in the master fee schedule. But if you look at the application we have posted online, it says $150. So we're just trying to, dot all the I's, cross all the T's to say, well, wait a minute, that should still have a formal fee. And it's actually, again, the city council, to your discretion, if you think that we need to increase that fee, you're welcome to. None of these fees are set in the zoning code, so that wouldn't be triggering any zoning code amendment. But I also wear the economic development hat, and so I do have, very much empathy for the business owners, such as one of the items on consent was waiving the sign fees.
Right.
So trying to minimize the impact to our business community, but at the same time, look at ways we can help activate the downtown.
All right.
But again, completely your decision.
I just needed clarification there. I was under the wrong impression, apparently, that the sidewalk dining was a temporary use and that we have sort of allowed that to go on as opposed to an allowed use now with a permit.
Yeah, that was something that we did this emergency dining permit during COVID, and I think
Right.
that's what you're thinking
Okay.
of. Yes.
The other question I have is on the item 12 on the list. This is reestablishment of an abandoned non-conforming use. My question is whether that has to go to the Planning Commission and the City Council under our process. I'm trying to gauge the fee there relative to the work that's done other than, well, in addition to staff work, are there hearings? Okay.
Yes, I believe it does go to Planning Commission.
All right. Other questions from my colleagues or comments? Vice Mayor Deasy, of course.
Hi, thank you. I'm on the minor use permit and the minor modifications. Can you describe a little bit what goes into that? It's different than just a plain old building permit. So is it correct that anything on this list needs to go to the Planning Commission, or is there anything on this list that does not?
I can answer the inverse of that. The only ones on this list that actually go to the Planning Commission, because I specifically checked those, would be the historic demolition permit, the historic overlay new, and also delisting, and the pre-zoning for annexation and the reestablishment of the non-conforming use.
Okay, thank you. So on the what I'm trying to understand is the minor use permit. If you could. It does seem like a bit of a big fee if it's something small. Can you help us understand how minor something is that would trigger that fee?
Yeah, so one example is, to back up for a little bit more history, a lot of the, in the old zoning code, we didn't have an ability to take something that should, make findings of, is this compatible with surrounding land uses? Is it served by utilities? All the things that we typically ask when we're looking at a use permit. All of those had to go to planning commission. So when we took a fresh look at the zoning code and all the permitted uses, and particularly uses that we wanted to promote, that didn't really seem like they were having really significant impacts to the community, we kind of split the baby, if you will. We said, no, they still need to be subject to the same findings that a full conditional use permit is needed. And we need to, when we issue our approval for a minor use permit, it's like a mini staff report, only it's like a memo. So we're still writing the findings of fact of how it meets all the same findings of a conditional use permit, but we're making those findings at a staff level. And just to also let you know that's, you'd have to really dig into the code to know this, is both for the minor modification and the minor use permit, we actually have to send out a public notice. And then if we receive for example, one of the property owners within 300 feet says, oh, I want to talk about this, then we have what we would call like a zoning administrator hearing, which is, we have at City Hall, and, I would basically conduct that meeting, and we would have public comment on it, and the applicant would be invited. And if they wanted to pull the item and have it heard by the planning commission, that could be an option. So when we analyzed how much time we would spend on these, we weren't expecting that majority of them were going to be up to the planning commission, but we still do have administrative fees for the noticing to send out to the neighbors. And so it's like a mini conditional use permit, but without the full staff report and all the additional preparations for that.
Okay, thank you. And I think you mentioned that if it turns out that any of these fees we find are, someone raises that it may be high for a lot of things, there's an opportunity for change. This is not in the future, is that? No.
Are you asking, can the fees go down if we decide
Yeah.
they're too high? Yeah, you can always reduce the fees, but it would take another action by council to do
Got it.
that.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? I'll look for a motion then, presumably to approve with the amended, Mr. Summers, yes.
I just have a couple questions, if that's okay. Thanks. So this sidewalk dining permit, what's the fee we're dropping down from $946 to $150, and then what's the timeline on that?
Typically, so Public Works has their own review that they do through an encroachment permit, because typically, obviously, this is on the sidewalk, but we would, once we receive the application, we usually turn those around within a week to 2 weeks.
Well, no, so you apply for it, and then is that 24 hours, or is that like 365 days, or how long is the permit for?
Oh, it's good until it doesn't have an expiration date.
I see. So you just get it, that's it, and you're on. Okay, copy that. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Thanks. Thanks, Maya. I have a question for Councilman Barrick. Have you looked at these fees, and what do you think about, you're always good with the numbers, and I'm just curious where you're coming from regarding, the changes, and you have any thoughts or sort of adds to this discussion?
I don't have any pithy thoughts at the moment outside of general kudos to staff for subsidizing some of these fees. We have pretty high fees in general, I believe, compared to other cities' housing fees and those type of things. So it's good to see for compliance requests and those things that they're being subsidized.
Ms. Deasy, of course, yes, sorry.
Thank you. I think what I want to make sure that I understand what I'm saying yes to here, and probably my fault for not fully, but in particular, I'm trying to understand what the implications are to kind of remodels, and are we incentivizing sort of modernizing our housing stock? And so that was why I was focused on the minor modifications use. Some of those costs do seem a little bit high, and I did dig into the calculations of how it was. But what is below? Can you help me understand what is below a minor use permit? And can we? There is something below a minor use permit, or is that like the bottom? If I want to just like replace a window or something like that.
Oh, okay. So yeah, let me clarify. So a minor use permit really has nothing to do about new construction. It's really when someone comes in, and this generally more applies to commercial businesses. They want to do, a tasting room. Let's just say that. And so we look in what zoning district are they in, and in the land use table it says either that's permitted by right, it's a minor use permit, or it's a conditional use permit. And then if they come and say, oh, now we want to remodel or do a thing with facade, then that may trigger a whole, like a design review. And so I think when your question about the window, that would be, nothing like that would be affected with these fees, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
All right. Last chance. Have we exhausted the subject? I'll look for a motion. I know there was a recommendation was to adopt the staff's recommendation with the amendments as noted. They were up there, but as noted in the presentation chart.
I'll make a motion to adopt staff recommendations with the amendments. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion. Do I have a second? There's
Second.
The recommended action, which we are, that is what we are voting on. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Barrick,
Yes.
Spataroto,
Yes.
Summers,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
and Mayor Doring.
Yes. I neglected to close the public hearing. That's an assumed thing, but it is closed. All right. On to 10.2, introduction and waiver of first reading of ordinance implementing penalties to delinquent water and sewer bills. A little bit of the history behind this. We're back to penalties. Mr. Miller, I'll let you introduce the item. It's fairly straightforward. I believe we received some public comment. I'm not sure. I'll have to look back at that. But Mr. Beltran.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we had this discussion at a couple of meetings ago, and council directed us to bring back a recommendation with updates based on the council direction. So here we are.
Here we are.
And yes, we have received some comments, and I think Finance Manager Beltran will describe our recommendation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for the introduction. You guys got my first part. But so we are back tonight to reintroduce delinquency penalties for water and wastewater services. As you recall, at the second meeting in May, we are transitioning from bi-monthly to monthly billing. We're also we revised the bill due date from a 30-day window to a 21-day window. And at that time, we removed the delinquency penalties with the action that we would be back to City Council with the revised proposed ordinance. So we did draft an ordinance. It was presented via the staff report. The ordinance would read as follow. If a payment by a customer has been delinquent for at least 60 days, the following action or actions shall be taken. One would be imposed of a 10% of the amount then delinquent, a penalty of 10%, I should say. And then also assess interest in the amount of 1% per month or fraction thereof for those bills that have a carryover balance. I did want to acknowledge the public comment that we did receive from Christopher Warner, suggesting that delinquency penalties for water and wastewater service should be assessed at a 30-day level instead of the proposed 60 days. One thing I did want to note, since we would be transitioning to every month billing cycle, so you would be assessing past due fees and also generating a brand new bill at the same 30-day time frame. So this is kind of our thought process from when we first introduced the item a few months ago was just trying to figure out a way of providing clarity, providing less confusion on the billing processes. In reviewing his public comment, one alternative that might work or might even work better than the 60-day window being proposed is assessing penalties at a 45-day after the statement date, so that you're off cycle from a billing date. So you would be bills due 21 days after. A new bill would be generated exactly 1 month after the initial bill, but then at the 45-day window from the initial bill, you would then be able to assess, if we keep it the same, a 10% penalty on that amount delinquent, and then any carryover balance, a 1% penalty. The one other note I wanted to make as part of the presentation is, for consistency, staff is also proposing to update the policy for disconnection of water service. So we do have a policy that follows state legislation on disconnection for water service for non-payment. And so any revised wording or proposed ordinance amendment, we would also want to revise that disconnection policy for consistency purposes to incorporate the same language. The disconnection policy in the proposed ordinance would then be brought back to City Council for adoption at the next City Council meeting, since this is a first reading of the item. And then I'm available if there's any questions. Thank you.
All right. Questions from my colleagues? Mr. Summers.
So the delinquency schedule, is that new? Is that?
No, it's not new. Prior to the previous action taken, the delinquency schedule was billing date. Well, we're at bi-monthly billing cycles, but it was a billing date. Bill was due 30 days. The next day after the bill was due, there was a 10% penalty. So that was the previous structure. But
And
now that we are transitioning over to a monthly structure, it's just trying to figure out what time frame or window would be best for.
And how much did we make off these penalties and delinquencies and, per quarterly?
So on the annual budget, here, we estimate approximately $45,000 on the water revenue side, and then $21,000 on the wastewater revenue side. That's an annual figure.
That's for the hookups and the penalties and the fees, and what does that include? Is that gross or net here? What are we talking?
That's just the penalties and interest. So
Penalties and then that's the 21,000 is the interest on the people who live in St. Helena for the 45,000? Or?
No, it's
sorry.
so it's 45,000 on the water side, and
Yep.
then 21,000 on the waste.
On the waste side?
Yeah.
Penalties on the waste side?
Yes.
And the penalties are from basically not paying in time? And at what stage do the penalties begin? Within 30 days, 60 days, 45 days? Is that what's being presented?
That is correct.
Okay. I mean, I'm anti-fee for water for sure, so I don't know how you feel, but I mean, if it's, I think you guys are the financials, so if that number, I know every little bit counts, but this part I'm really partial to, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Thank you. Yeah, so we talked about this topic, I think it was last time or whenever it was, and there was some good public comment sort of proposing that we keep the fees because this revenue is so important. And I think a big point was that we have the CARES program, and then so residents who need help are taken care of. And someone pointed out to me after that meeting that there's a lot of room in between those who qualify for the CARES subsidy and wealthy customers. And I think that was kind of where our conversation was last time. And the disappointment in not recognizing that there are families who are hurt by those penalties, which, right, 10% on day number one of being late is kind of a lot. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, and Mr. Summers kind of throw some support. I don't know if we should be entirely anti, no fees on water, but I think that recognizing that water bills are a source of stress for many residents, quite frankly, we fight about our water bills in my home. So I guess that my thought is that I hope that there's a happy medium somewhere in here between, 10% on day one and no fees.
Ms. Barrett.
So just a refresher from this topic, the Finance Committee had recommended that we keep things as is, and they did come to lobby to that fact with the belief that because we have some financial stress and because we're tightening the belt, et cetera, that waiving the fees, which was the original staff recommendation, was not prudent, and they were quite adamant. We did listen to them when we came up with a compromise of 60 days that we felt threaded the needle, basically made both sides not happy, but they agreed that, hey, we'll take it. It seemed reasonable. And so that's where we ended up, Billy, through a lot of discussion. So yeah, it's a charged subject, but here we are now. And so the staff has come back with a proposal thinking, hey, this is what everybody wanted. Although I'm hearing, Mr. Beltran, that you're now recommending a 45-day and there's a 60-day here. So if we go forward with that, this will need to come back. Is that correct?
I would defer to City
Mr.
Attorney
Walsh.
Walsh.
It would probably be better if it came back, just because it's not as simple as changing 60 days to 45 days, because you can't disconnect in 45 days. That's statutory. So it would take a little more cleanup than just switching the number of days.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mello.
So what I guess we were trying to say is that 30 days was very difficult administratively. That's why we came up with 60 days. I think that, as Mr. Beltran said, 45 days, if it's acceptable, if we hear that that's what you want, we can certainly work with the city attorney's office and come back with a different plan that accommodates that. So what we want to hear is, what's your preference, 30, 60, or 45? We believe that 45 days does work.
All right. Thoughts from Ms. Badarotto?
So, thank you very much, Mr. Beltran, by the way, for your work on this. We all very much appreciate it. I am in favor of the 45 days. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that if we can, I know the issue that we talked about the last time was a fear that there would be a disconnect between the timing of one bill going out and when monies were coming in. And I think 45 days is a good window. I appreciate Mr. Warner's email as well, his letter indicating, I know that there are rough times for everybody, but we are all adults. We all have to come to terms and we all know ahead of time if we're going to have a problem. And we had talked last time about if somebody calls and says, hey, I'm going to be a little late, can I have a little bit of a window? And then there's that conversation depending on the certain circumstance. Am I correct in that assumption?
That is correct. The city does offer a hardship extension payment plan, essentially, to allow those customers to then extend their balance over a 12-month period.
Before we get into a more extended conversation, I need to open the public hearing and invite public comment, and then we'll bring it back. Initially, I was thinking we were just having a couple clarifying questions. Now we're going into a full-on deliberations, a little bit premature in my view. Anybody from the public wishing to comment to your city council on this matter? Okay, now we'll bring it back to the council. It doesn't look like anyone's approaching the podium. All right, did you have something to add to it, Mr. Barrick?
Not to add, to validate, Kate, that was part of the discussion, and perhaps 45 days, I would agree with that. I would agree with the staff recommendation, and perhaps it should come back.
All right. And I'm okay with the 45 days. It looks like it should come back. I guess one question I have is, have we done a survey? I just want to validate this because folks come to me and say that our penalties, it's not the days, but just the amount, the the 10% plus the 1% after, is that within the ballpark of the Napa Valley or, the greater North Bay? Do you know that offhand?
Not offhand. We did run a few numbers, so I know I've personally compared Napa County and Sonoma County jurisdictions, so I can come back and potentially
It'd be interesting to
provide
see
that
how we
information.
fit in, to see if we're in the ballpark, so to speak. All right. Do you have enough direction, staff, Mr. Comello? We're going to bring that back at the 45-day.
Yes, I believe we do. Oh,
time.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
Thanks, Mayor. Ethan, I have a question. Now, is there any precedent regarding water disconnection being inhumane and unfair treatment in any other cities in California?
So there are laws on what you have to, like a process that you have to follow under state law before you can disconnect somebody. There's like notices you have to send out. You have to send them out and make them available in multiple languages. You have to make sure that it doesn't present like a human health and safety issue. And so, yes, there's lots of protections in the law for people to avoid water disconnection.
Yeah, because,
resulting
is it not a human right, water? No?
Well, it's one of those things where you can't just give it away for free because there's a cost associated with it. And so, there are ways that you can get kind of a payment plan and that type of thing. And so I think Martine can probably speak to this better than I can, but I know they do work with people if they're in a situation where they just can't pay, where they give them extra time to pay, and that's all built in.
I just feel like it's a little greedy with, we don't have enough ratepayers, but we're trying to, be predatory around water. I just want us to be cautious and thoughtful and remember that we're up here because the people come first, not the institution of water. But it's important to just be balanced and thoughtful, so it's 10% right away. I think maybe more warning time, be a little more lenient. I know the numbers are important. We got to get money from everywhere we can at this dire stage, yet let's, put the people first, and water's just, it's important for everybody no matter what where you're at, what stage. Thanks for everybody for taking the time. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I think we have sufficient direction. I think it was good comments by all.
Yeah, no, I think we have direction. We'll come back.
All right, thank you for that. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Beltran, for that item, and we're moving on to item 11. It's discussion and direction regarding the use of modular housing units at the water and wastewater treatment plants for staff housing. I think this was a carryover from a couple weeks ago, right, Mr. Comello? Or is this the first time we've seen this? Maybe I've seen it a couple times in my
Yeah, this
my
is
other
the first time we're
life.
seeing it in this forum. We've
Okay,
seen it in a
all right.
different forum.
That's right. All right, thank you.
So I'll be having, be turning it over to Deputy City Manager Leslie Milton, but before that, I just want to put just some history here real quickly. I know she's going to go over that herself as well. The city has had a trailer where an employee lived at the water treatment plant. I just want to make sure that there's that history. What we've experienced over the last 5-6 years is a great difficulty in hiring qualified professionals in the water and wastewater field. Partly because they are very stringent requirements for certification by the state, and there are very few of those, and that's why we've spent frankly a lot of money using consultants in that role, which we, by the way, are required to have certain certified individuals. So, among other strategies, including increasing the compensation, which council has done in the last couple of years, we want to explore this as another option. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Deputy City Manager Milton.
Do you have an estimated time for your presentation?
I can
10 minutes?
try to be very brief if you'd
Okay,
like.
thank you.
Okay. And City Manager Comello actually gave away all the high points anyway, so this is good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome, Ms. Milton.
Thank you. So this is, thank you. This was actually on our city council agenda, but we didn't have time for it. So you may have seen the agenda report for it previously, but we didn't present it at the meeting. So this is something I'm very pleased to bring before you this evening because two things that are primary goals for us as city staff members and in city leadership is the efficient and effective management of city resources and the recruitment and retention of qualified staff. So this is a proposed project that we are hoping to, that we're presenting to you and recommending for policy consideration. And like City Manager Camilla said, recruitment and retention, we've had a shortage of operators statewide. Housing costs, as we all know, are fairly high in the region. And then we have a need, and this has been a benefit in the past, for emergency readiness. Having on-site housing enables 24/7 support, because we have had fires, we do have water emergencies, we do have wastewater emergencies at our facilities. We are a 24/7 operation, so it makes sense that we have city employees that are within a reasonable distance of those facilities. Next slide, please. So right now, this is a photo of our existing housing facility out at the wastewater treatment plant. It has been housed, we've had it since the 80s, and we have rented it under market value to existing water enterprise staff members on and off since the 1980s. It has been vacant since, it's questionable whether it's 2020 or before that. We do believe it was before that, though the lease agreement ended in 2020. We think it's been vacant since 2018-ish. We had an assessment done. It needs about $100,000 in repairs just to be habitable. That doesn't make it attractive. It just makes it habitable. It is an older facility, and we all know that facilities that sit vacant without heat and usage, they tend to dilapidate much more rapidly. So we are exploring the idea of, we want to present a couple options to you tonight. One of them, and next slide, please. We're presenting the potential to either repair or replace that with some potential modular units. So at two different sites. So we have both. This is currently at our water treatment site out on Crystal Springs Road, right next to, it's adjacent to our water treatment plant. It's right next to the reservoir. It's near our storage tanks. And then also we're considering, and the proposal is to remove that old trailer, and the facility, we've had it assessed already, and we believe it could house two modular units, about 1,000 square feet in size, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and it could be fully electrified. And you could potentially consider also a housing facility out at our wastewater treatment plant. We could do a modular unit out there. We do have access to direct sewer connection, and we've looked at all the different elements and possibilities of adding those up to 3 units, and that's what we wanted to talk to you about tonight. Next slide, please. So during our assessment and evaluation, I think we skipped a slide, but that's okay. We'll keep it going. Under our assessment, we looked at different types of modular units that are out there on the market right now. It's definitely improved over the last several years with all the efforts of tiny homes and just trying to add affordable housing into the housing stock. There are definitely different tiers of pre-manufactured units that are not your typical mobile home. These manufactured homes are quite luxurious in some cases. And so the basic models range between 45 and 65,000 with an approximate, years of usage of 15 years. And it goes up from there, mid-range 65 to 85, and the higher end 85 to 100,000 per unit. And this is just an analysis. I pulled it off a housing blog, I guess you could say, a report that the cost that you invest is directly proportional to the length of the investment. So if we bought our water treatment trailer in 1980, it's now 2025, that's been 45 years. And so our initial investment has definitely been recouped. This is just a similar model with a newer structure. Next slide, please. So in order to this, so just to estimate what the cost per unit, site prep and permitting, and the site prep includes just connections to sewage. It'll be different at each site. There'd be a direct connect at the wastewater treatment plant. At water treatment plant, we would do a leach field. There's already existing PG&E power out there, so that's something that can help speed it along a lot faster. There's just permitting and things like that, regulatory modifications. The units itself, delivery and installation, so the total cost per each unit, depending on the level that you would choose, would be between $88,000 and $210,000 each to provide reasonable and attractive housing for our challenge to recruit staff members. Okay, next slide. So here's the implementation phase. If you were to go forward with this, we anticipate it would be probably a 6 to 8 months because of procurement and actual installation. So you do a site survey and permitting. We would actually choose the manufacturer based on the criteria the council sets. We would establish the utility connections and foundation design. We would have to develop lease and policy development. So the proposal includes providing this housing, and whether the council chooses it, either at no cost to the staff member or at a subsidized cost to the staff member under market value. So as an example, if we choose to invest at the $100,000 level and we rent it, this is what the rental cost was at the previous one, was $1,500 a month. Your payback period is 5.5 years on that. So we would have to develop lease and policy development also based on what funding source, and we'll talk about that in a minute. All of that would be done. We would bring it back to the council to actually authorize the budget amendment, authorize the purchase because it'll be exceeding the $25,000 threshold. You would get to see and finalize and approve all of that, and then we would issue the procurement, install it, and finalize and solicit for staff members. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about funding. We do have 3 options for funding. So all of these do come at a cost. But there's also a benefit. So you could fund this through enterprise funds. We have a water and a wastewater enterprise. Now, if you do fund it through a water and wastewater enterprise, you would then be restricted to only using water and wastewater, or allowing water and wastewater employees to rent those facilities. If you wanted to use general fund, you did through the general fund. So it opens up your breadth of recruitment for other positions that are hard to recruit for. We did explore, and you can also do this, we can do grant funds as well. We looked at different state and federal grants. Unfortunately, most of those will trigger the Fair Housing Act, would not allow us to preclude it to be available to city staff only. So that's the challenge with trying to use grant funds for this, because it really opens you up to make sure you cannot restrict it to employee housing only. Okay, next slide. Okay, and like we talked about before, we are a 24/7 operation. So historically, it helped us manage our overtime having a water treatment operator who lived right next to the water treatment staff. You don't have to pay for the time for them to travel in and travel back to their homes during the events of emergency. It reduces our contract staffing costs. In our existing agreement with contract staffing, we are paying for housing costs, which is one of the reasons why the contract is so high. I mentioned before, the rental income can offset your investment, and then it can turn into a revolving fund. So after the 5-year payback period, those funds still go back into your enterprise fund or the general fund, and it can be restricted to put back into build more additional housing for staff. And then it also shows our city's commitment to our workforce to provide adequate housing and availability within a reasonable distance. Next slide. So tonight we are proposing, but staff can make the council can choose any policy direction they'd like. We are proposing installing 3 units, 2 at the water treatment plant, 1 at the wastewater treatment plant, though you also could choose to allocate funds just to rehabilitate the existing structure that's there. We do have a habitable building that's there, but this is what our best recommendation is. We believe the total cost to be $486,000, and we are recommending the higher range modular units for the longest longevity of use, as well as compatibility with the neighborhood. Next slide. So there's 3 decision points that we have for you tonight. The number of units that you would like, if you want to move forward with this. Would you like to rehabilitate the existing trailer, install 2 units at water treatment, or 2 units at water treatment and 1 at the wastewater treatment for a total of 3? Next slide. Then the unit quality, the basic model, the mid-range, or the higher end. And the next slide. And then the funding source. Would you prefer to use enterprise funds, knowing that we have restrictions on enterprise funds, knowing everything we spend out of the utility impacts, and it has to be funded by the utility, impacts the ratepayer. The general fund for broader use, or a mixed approach, which you can do both, and that way that's where the establishment of policies could go. You could fund some of it with general fund and some of it with enterprise fund. So those are the 3 decision points we were hoping to get direction from if you would like to move forward. And whatever you choose, we will come back to you with each element or each phase of the procurement. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any initial clarifying questions from the council?
No, good. Yeah.
Mr. Barrett, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's the total, right? There's 3 properties here, 3 buildings you're proposing. And I understand the benefits around it, and thank you for delving into that. But what's the city's estimate of savings, right? Or is this a net cost? Wasn't totally clear to me.
I think it's a little bit intangible at this point. The savings are we would be able to hire staff that, hire staff, because our wastewater treatment operator, who was a contract operator, outstanding operator, he couldn't make it pencil to come on as a full-time city employee because there's no affordable housing in the region, and our rates, our salaries were just not high enough for him to make it affordable for him to stay. We have existing staff members who are asking if we can rehabilitate this. We have excellent treatment operators that we are afraid we might lose unless we find some sort of solution for them. Some of our water treatment operators travel an hour each way. So in the event of an emergency or when they're on call, it's an hour travel time to and from. So there are savings in overtime like that. There's savings in not having turnover. There's savings in not having to use contract operators. I didn't calculate all of those out, and I absolutely can if that's what you would prefer. But it's a little bit intangible because those are just if there's an emergency, when there's an emergency, if someone chooses to leave.
So I think if I can answer
Mr. Camello, yes.
When we did some back-of-the-envelope calculations, I don't know, 6 months ago, we were factoring if we did it over 15 years and went with the higher-end model, which is a longer-lasting model, which means that it lasts 30 years. Over 15 years, we would definitely save money because there are there's first of all income from the rent, even if it's subsidized. I would say even if you use, at that time we were, at least I calculated based on $1,000 a month, not $1,500 a month. But when you factor the difference between hiring a full-time employee, being able to be competitive on the market as opposed to using OTS or any other company, the savings were there. So I was very comfortable saying, it's not, we're not in the housing business as staff, but we are in fact encouraging private enterprises to build housing and to subsidize housing for their employees. And so this way, we figured we were going to, generally speaking, save money over 15 years or so. So the return on investment on a 30-year product, we felt at that time, again, we can run the numbers, updated numbers, would about be 15 years return on investment.
Thank you. And what procedures are we going to put in place to make sure these buildings are kept up? So we're not sitting here like we are with so many of our buildings in the hot tub time machine, as it were. Do we have a plan there or thought on how residents would be reassured that we wouldn't end up in the same spot, just out 500,000?
I would like to say I would absolutely be committed to doing that. I know we have enough, we do have enough in our building maintenance fund. We have qualified staff who can do building maintenance. I can't speak to past conditions of how we've maintained our buildings. I just know how we can do it going forward. I'm sorry, I know that's not very good assurance, but I do think that responsible management of our existing assets is really important. And I hope that I've demonstrated, like I see, our city parks, we're investing in those because you have to invest in order to maintain, in order to continue the quality. So, I don't know, Mr. Camello, would you suggest any policies in addition to that?
Well, I think that you're referring to, frankly, our experience as a city. I think you're alluding to that. I think if you look at our Main Street building, if you look at our parks in the past, yes, we have had a history. And by the way, just to be we should not be beating ourselves up too much. This is not the only city that has its buildings and its assets not being maintained. And partly, you and I have had these conversations, Councilmember Barrick. It's therefore important that we set aside monies in our capital reserve fund to be able to invest continually. So that's there. So the other thing I'll just say as a practical matter, it's the same department that manages our facilities, which is her department, this would be a colleague of theirs. And so I would imagine that there would be some peer pressure to fix the structures on an ongoing basis.
All right. Ms. Summers?
Well, this sounds like the cheapest, most efficient way to get affordable housing in town that I've ever heard of. I think this is the direction we should go if this is what we got to do it. And I'd love to have the guy that can fix the thing living right next to the thing we want fixed. That doesn't sound like a terrible idea for just public constituents going, hey, we got a guy that cares here. I saw him at the Safeway, and I know he wants these toilets flowing in this town because he cares. He lives here. His kids go to school here, part of the community. So I like it community-wise, and I just love that it's a way to sort of break the mold. Now, the question I have is, does it count for our affordable housing, or is that off the table since it's a tiny home?
That's an excellent question. I wonder if Mr. Rosa knows that, if she's still here. I apologize, I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out. It's a great question.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Oh, there you are.
Just restate the question to make sure I can help.
Okay, so we're in favor of the tiny homes. However, I think with the caveat that we put like a regular maintenance schedule on it, attached to us, sort of, yeah. And then the other question is, now do these tiny homes count towards our affordable housing, with the state, what do you call it, the HTC?
Yeah,
Yeah.
HCD, yeah. If we can
HCD.
classify it as an accessory dwelling unit, which is, full independent living facility, then yes, it can count towards a green
And does that look like a decent percentage of that potentially happening, and then us meeting those REMA requirements and such?
Our perspective is every unit counts and
Okay.
is helpful.
Okay, I
so.
just wanted to check where we were looking at it as we go forward. Okay, I'm triply in favor. It was doubly, but now triply. And Tripoli is beautiful in the summer, trust me.
Just one question. So in the staff report, you had calculated that it would be an investment of $486,000. As I understood that was based on $162,000 for each unit.
For the higher end units, yes, that's
Yeah, but
correct.
then in your presentation, you had another number where you jumped up to 220. What is the delta there? There's some additional, unless I'm just misunderstanding the point you're making.
Is this the slide you're talking about? Right here, 486,000?
Yeah, earlier in the slide, there was a 220,000. So it went up a little bit more, the estimate from 160 to 210. Sorry, I thought, yeah.
Oh, and that's per unit, so that
Per unit.
would depend. It's 88 to 162, if
Okay.
you add up all those numbers. So I
Okay.
do apologize for that.
Because I was going to multiply the 210 by 3, and that's substantially more than the
Yes,
486.
you're right.
So
I apologize for that one.
Okay.
No, it's between 88 and 162,000
Okay.
per unit, based on these assumptions.
All right. Who specifically is the target plant?
Chief plant operators or
Chief
treatment
plant operators. That would be the number one target, correct? And we need one of those, right?
We need one at each facility, correct?
Okay. Do we? I mean, I know we have one, and we have one vacancy there, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you have an idea what the income level of that person is?
Yeah, the CPO range is between 114 and 138 for the chief plant operator, and for our operators, level 1 is 78 to 94,000.
Okay. See, I was assuming that with that certification was much higher, so that's a good clarification.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking much higher. Wow. That's okay. Yeah, that doesn't get you very far in the Napa Valley.
No.
Understood. All right. Ms. Summers.
So I heard nicer, but then nicer got clarified from not just sort of more luxurious to actually more long-lasting, better materials. Now, how many people are going to fit into this? Is it a family can fit in there, or what's that look like? Was there a minimum and maximum as far as who we could house, as far as attracting for our future, the city's future? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So we have some flexibility according to whatever the council chooses. The way we bid it was 1,000 square feet and a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. But I think there's flexibility in that if you would prefer. There are modular units that go 2, 3 bedrooms, much larger. I raised 3 kids in 1,000 square feet, so I know what it's, and I had 2 dogs, so I know it can happen. It's great. So it's really up to the council if you would prefer. It's a policy decision. Do you want 1 bedrooms? Do you want 2 bedrooms, 1,000 square feet? Do you want larger than that?
Well, I want the best people we can hire
Correct.
in our city to feel like they want to come here. And it's a great city, and it really is. It's becoming the greatest city I've experienced since I've been here, since the old times, since it was sophisticated Mayberry with Dell, which was great. But now we're in this new phase, and we got to really shepherd it. So I feel like this is a really big attraction. If we can't get somebody, then this kind of changes the game. And if you guys are in alignment, financially, I think we have the money too. So anyways, that's where I'm at. If council has any.
I'm going to wait here a second and open it for public comment. I think we're these conversations are getting more extended than they probably should be without at least hearing from our public, and then we'll bring it back to council. Anybody wishing to comment on this matter? Seeing none, I'll bring it. I'll keep public comment open. Ms. Demand, thank you.
I get it. I get the need for the housing and everything. I bristled when I heard that, it might come out of the water and wastewater funds. I mean, those are being impacted all the time. And, we just had a long conversation about people's water rates and how they can't afford it. So this doesn't help that. And it's a new project that, hasn't been presented before. And I'm looking at that $486,000 and thinking, do we have it? I mean, if we keep, little here, little there, we're not going to get ahead financially. So I just hope that you guys really seriously consider the budget implications. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to say a couple things about it as well. I actually think the city needs to run as a business, and as business owners, we all have to look to hire the best people and bring them into our city. I have that challenge all the time between here and Calistoga, trying to find affordable housing for baristas and people who work at my coffee shop. So I think it's really, really important that we do move forward a project like this. And I'd like to see maybe a 2-bedroom, maybe one of them be a 2-bedroom, and then a 1-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. I think we'll open up the doors even a little bit more.
All right. Thank you for the comment. Seeing no one else, I'll close the public comment, bring it back to Ms. Deasy, who had a comment. I apologize for interrupting. I just want to make sure we heard from our public. Ms. Deasy.
Yeah, thank you for everyone for the good discussion, staff and public and council. I think it also makes sense to me, and it makes sense economically. I'm guessing it's going to be $700,000 because everything is more. I come to about a 15-year payoff with $1,250 a month. I agree with the 2-bedroom. My comment is that in addition to providing housing, it sounds like a good deal. Those are good jobs, and now if you've got housing, it's a great job. So I just hope that we're promoting these. Well-paying depends on how you look at well-paying, but if there's housing attached to it, I hope that our young students who are growing up here know about these opportunities so they can go get those certifications. So that is my just sort of pitch. Let's make sure people know about these jobs so that our young students can get them. But yeah, thank you for all the work. And I did have one quick question. If it's coming out of water and wastewater, do we need to finance this, or we have money that we can use we don't need to mortgage this, we can just pay it?
Mr. Mayor, can I? Sorry.
I was waiting for, yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to have Ms. Keller come and talk about that, but in the meantime, let me just suggest to you that if I had to recommend, and we have had internal conversations about this, that perhaps one of the dwellings, particularly the wastewater treatment plant, could be coming out of the wastewater treatment fund, and the other two, I would recommend, and we can get updated cost figures would come from the general fund. And the reason I would recommend that is because it maximizes flexibility, because we have only about, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 employees altogether in our water and wastewater enterprises. And so it's possible that, to the point of discussion, if someone has a house somewhere, they have, 3 kids and a dog, or 2 dogs, they may not want to go into 1,000 square feet or 1,200 square feet at a particular point in time. And we wouldn't want to leave that vacant, so we would want to rent that to another employee in the interim. So to maximize flexibility, I would suggest that we come back to you once you agree on what this general structure is, for the 2 units that come out of the general fund. And since the money gets paid back into the same fund, if the money came out initially from, say, the wastewater fund, the profits, if you will, or the payments will go back into that fund to recoup the costs.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Just to clarify, it would be the water fund, not the wastewater fund. Yeah, we don't have funds available there. On the water fund side, we do have some flexibility. As you know, with the budget that you recently adopted, there was a delta between the revenues and expenditures that we could use those monies to fund the portion from the water fund side. And then on the general fund side, we'd be taking from reserves to fund that, but we would not need to finance it. Thank you.
All right. More direction or more commentary with respect to the source of the funds, the number of units? What do you think about the idea that Mr. Dean and Ms. Deasy have suggested, I don't know, you said a 2-bedroom or I'm not sure how to describe that. Yeah, 2-bedroom. 2-bedroom? Is that what that is? Yeah. Thoughts about that? Mr. Barrick, in terms of the source of the funds?
So for my standpoint, Mr. Mayor and Council, I think that using the water fund for the chief water operator is absolutely appropriate and complies with Prop 218, the spirit of it. That makes sense to me. We have an existing unit. We have money there. I'd even be okay to going to a 2-bedroom there to open the door. I am uneasy about spending from the general fund in our current predicament, and I understand the need for housing. However, the general fund is very tight. We've just got through budget deliberations. I'm sitting on the finance committee along with Director Kellogg. This is a serious group looking for savings anywhere they can get. I feel the housing issue, and we've talked before in the campaign and at other times, a housing stipend program should get looked at to strategically solve our macro issues with employee housing. Unfortunately, I don't think this is the time to do so. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. What do you think about that? If we don't tap our general fund, is that still possible?
It's absolutely still possible. It depends if you wanted to, and if we had available funding to pull all 3 units, or if you just wanted to do 2 units like we had proposed. It's up to the council the number of units that you would like to do. Or if you wanted to be incredibly frugal, you could just rehabilitate the existing trailer and provide housing to 1 staff member. We could do that.
Right. Mr. Walsh, yes.
Just to make sure everyone understands, if you did do that, they would need to be exclusively for water operators.
That's the downside, of course.
Right.
Yes. So you talked about trying to fill a position, but talk a little bit more about, without putting anyone necessarily on the spot, but folks who are here, the retention aspect of this. Do you think there's possibilities there where folks who are already in our system maybe are commuting a long ways and would be more likely to stay? So those are the folks you know about. You kind of have a sense of, do they have families, or where they commute 2 hours, 1 hour? We have a little bit more data there. Mm-hmm. What's your gut sense that might be an opportunity for us to keep someone without making any, I'm not saying a promise, but is there some hope there to retain somebody by going through this program?
Oh, absolutely. If I didn't have full confidence in our existing staff and want to actively try to retain them, I wouldn't be here tonight. We have an excellent staff, and every single one of them live outside of the city at a very, very, very significant difference or distance away. And I want to do everything we can to retain them because we are training them. We are paying to send them to training. They are actively getting their certifications. They know our system and our city, and I think it's important that we, provide those opportunities for them to stay should they want to. We do have several we have several people in committed relationships, and I've had conversations with them. They are struggling with housing and with the commute, which does impact their quality of life.
Yeah.
So, and I do want to.
I mean, that's what I suspected. I just wanted to hear that from you.
Yes, it does. And then to your point, I mean, we do have other positions in the city that also we struggle with very similar things, similar struggles with recruiting for our police officers and other positions throughout the city. So I don't want any other department to think that that's not also occurring in other departments.
Right. Ms. Batteroda, and then I'll go to you, Ms. Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in line what Mr. Barrick was saying about our general fund and where we are currently. I am also in 100% agreement that we need workforce housing, and I think this is a great idea is all around. My suggestion would be to move ahead with using the water funds for the one unit, and then at the other site, maybe leaving the one that's currently there that needs to be rehabbed. I don't know if we can just put a small amount of money into it to hold it off until we have enough money to replace it. And then in the meantime, look to see what it would mean to maybe put a middle range unit on that property, a one bedroom, and see what that might look like as far as coming, budget wise for our general fund, if that would be, something that we could do, or if that would hurt too much. But those would be my current thoughts right now.
Mr. Summers.
Yeah. Don't we have money set aside in our low-income housing right now?
We do have monies in our affordable housing, although there would be lots of restrictions, and this may or may not qualify.
Well, that's just the question. Do you think it has a chance? Was it like 2% low chance, or is it a 50? I mean, what's the chance of this qualifying?
We do have available funding there, but this definitely would be a question for legal, and that would, if it would restrict the income level of the person living in the home, if we use those monies.
Well, we know what they're going to be making, right?
Yeah, and according to their income, they would be above the Napa County low income requirements.
Yeah, I don't think it would qualify to use those funds.
We'll pay you less, but we'll give you housing.
Perhaps this is we're talking about doing housing, few units. It's a slippery slope. Just having experience up in King County, Seattle, it quickly turns into subsidized housing. And once you offer it to a few employees, it can be there can be ramifications that we might not be ready for. It becomes a entitlement, unfortunately, to some respects. I would recommend that we tackle this together, and we're not going to be able to do it tonight, and get some plans. Mr. Camelo and I have had many discussions about this in the past that can be brought before council or collaborated with members of council and the mayor to see what we can do that's sustainable long-term and fits the moment.
Could we do that as well as make a motion to rehab the current state, at that's at the wastewater treatment place? Is that right? Do I have the?
At water treatment.
Oh, water treatment, not wastewater treatment. And we're looking for a wastewater treatment guy, but we have a place at the water treatment place that could be rehabbed. Is this correct? No? The mayor, would you help? Yes? No? That's right.
That is correct. The
Leslie
housing's
says so.
at water treatment, and we have a vacancy at wastewater treatment. Correct.
Okay, because I'm thinking, what's the sort of cheap, friendly, let's get the process opened up as we identify, and work together as a community to do. I mean, there could be some loopholes that could really help us all. It sounds like. So, what do you think?
I guess I need clarification, Mr. Barrick. You want to postpone this until we have a fuller discussion, or you're ready to go forward with some semblance of the recommendation? I know there's been a couple different
Yes.
facets of that recommendation. It's going to involve.
Yeah, and it's hard because we're doing a lot of deliberation here,
Yeah.
maybe too much. I would say that going forward with a 2-bedroom in the spot that I've spoken previously, I'm leery of rehabbing a unit because
I am too.
I
That
lived
looks
in a
pretty
mobile
bad.
home unit in Missouri once for a little bit, and they
That
it's better to
that
replace
explains it, Ms.
That's
Barrett.
right. Yeah, get off me, Paul. Yeah. Exactly. So that's my thoughts on it, but I appreciate the spirit of trying to find a way there in that regard.
All right, what do you think, Ms. Deasy? We're getting closer to kind of coalescing. There's a little bit of difference on the rehab versus the new units. I'm not inclined to think that the rehab is a good investment for us. I'm inclined to support the notion that probably not general fund at this point, and that I know that there's a downside to that, but the need is for these operators at this point. So, two 1-bedrooms, one 2-bedroom, Mr. Merrick?
I'm open to one. Open to one 2-bedroom, one 1-bedroom.
Okay, one of each. One of each. Okay.
Wherever your head's at.
Well, they're thinking 3 units, but you're down to 2. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Okay, understood.
Directly
Yeah.
linked to the general fund
Yeah,
issue.
okay. And I would support that. Ms. Deasy, what do you think?
I'm just trying to understand so you're saying 2 units, 1 at each, 1 2-bedroom and 1 unit. I'm going to say, the thing about a 1-bedroom is that you've built it and now someone can't use it because they've got a child. So what about 2 2-bedroom units? That would be such a shame.
That'd be a good compromise, I guess. So 2 units. No, well, Ms. Brattle, you have the floor.
Okay. So my only concern is that if we have one at the wastewater and one at the water, but we're only pulling out of the water fund and not the general fund, that means we are pigeonholing who specifically can be in both of those. And I just want to make sure we're all clear that that's what that means. So it'd have to be somebody who's specifically working in that. Okay.
Can I take that a little further? What if there's, right, we all know how there is a little bit of funding from other positions that goes to, I guess there's no, right, someone's 25% of their salary, let's just say, goes to the water fund. What would that mean? They could only live there 25% of the time, or they could live there, or they could not live there?
So that's why this is exactly why what staff recommends is that, we prioritize, first of all, that folks living there, first of all, it'll be for water and wastewater employees, ideally. Among them, even, we would prioritize the chief plant operators, because those are the most difficult positions to fill. My point simply was that we want to maximize flexibility in that if we don't have folks from those 6 employees who want housing at a particular point in time, we would then provide the opportunity for others. And for that reason, I would still recommend that you consider using general funds. Now, I understand Councilmember Barrick's concerns, and we can maybe, before we bring this back, it's got to come back anyway, we can think through that solution to that issue, because if there is in fact a viable, and we can demonstrate to you that there's a return on investment, in other words, the general fund would be fronting the money, but it's really not a net cost to the city in the long run, and you'll be saving money, I think it might change your minds.
All right, I don't think it'll change mine, but I do think probably legally at some point, so we're focusing on the employee need that we have right now. We're looking to our enterprise funds solely, But I don't know if that stops us from down the road saying when we have more income and revenue into the city to pay back or to reimburse and sort of buy the right later on to use that, use one of the units or both of the units for a quote general fund employee. I think we can still do that, frankly. Does that sound? You're giving me the eye like, I don't think so, Paul. But
Well,
that's okay.
no, I mean, I think you potentially could. I think on a lot of these questions, so if you are going to do this, we're going to have to develop a policy
Yes.
on how we are going to implement this and everything. So
Okay.
we're kind of just scratching the surface
Yeah,
here.
okay.
We're really going to have
All
to
right.
dig in.
All
And I
right.
think staff's mainly
All right.
looking for direction to see if they can spend the time to dig
I think
in.
we have enough direction at this point, and of course, I would review any new information, as I tell the judges all the time, Mr. Kamala, any new information in terms of moving it forward, but you can see the concern by Mr. Barker. Hopefully it's a short-term concern, and, you know, revenue is always an issue for a city, and I kind of am inclined to think that way too. That does not foreclose us from kind of looking at different options. Mr. Summers.
Thanks, Mayor, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to reflect, you know, growing up, being a builder and, you know, working in construction and, you know, on sets and residential, I would recommend that we take a look at rehabbing because, you know, made by local people, you know, of local materials, it might be an opportunity to make it even nicer and in the sort of, you know, St. Helena essence of who we are and what we are. And that would be attractive to not be like, oh, you're in this trailer, but it's a new one. But, you know, the materials, what if we built it out of just cedar, redwood, you know, the local materials that are anti-bug, and it's in the ethos of us, you know, natural, regenerative, because we're talking these employees are regenerating their own money from their own department, right? So they have a need to make it go well, be well, and live here. And I want to make it the nicest little place we can if we have that opportunity that costs us less money and brings the community together and makes a cuter little great. I mean, it's nothing to rehab it. Wood, come on, baby. You know, wood, concrete, metals, hey, metal, you know, something nice. Local rocks, all right? It's not that hard, but it could all bring us together, and we could be proud of it rather than, oh, we got these from Sonoma. No, this guy from Napa built that little rock wall. It's really nice. So think about it, all right? I would engage you to consider it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Summers. Enough direction? Yes, sir. Okay, let's move on. How you all, a little break before these next two laundry items? Thank you. Let's take a break. Let's take a 10-minute break. Oh. Okay. All right, we're going to get started. All right. Thank you. We're going to reconvene our meeting. We're on to item 11.2, appeal of utility bill by Dean Properties LLC.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think we'll have, well, sorry, Dean, you want to speak first? We had a presentation.
It's up to you guys.
Okay. Go ahead.
No. We'll wait a minute. You asked me what we want to do, not him. No, so I want to introduce the item, and then we'll allow Mr. Dean to, of course, give a presentation, but at least we need to get a little bit of background for the community so they understand. Would that be appropriate, Mr.? And of course, we'll have anybody else who needs to speak. Is that our presentation, or is that Mr. Dean's presentation? Okay, let's go forward, Mr. Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. So we're here tonight to hear an appeal by Carl Dean of Dean Properties LLC. Mr. Dean established a utility billing account for 1400 Oak Avenue, which is the Sam's General Store location for water and wastewater services on September 27, 2024. Just a quick highlight, the city's water rate structure is based off a base fee or flat fee, and also a variable use volume rates. And those, as we speak, are on 100 cubic feet for water delivery. So Mr. Dean has filed an appeal to the City Council to waive $4,673.86 in charges. And these are for charges incurred between September 27th through January 23rd. And that timeline is important because during that time frame at the property, there was a 2-inch water meter. And since the January 23rd date, there's now a 5/8 or 3/4 inch water meter installed at the property. So timeline of events, again, the account was established on September 27th. Our billing process, being a bi-monthly billing process, the first bill that Mr. Dean received was on November 21st, which would have covered the period, and it was a partial, so it wasn't a full billing period. It would have covered the period of September 27th through October 31st. And upon receiving his bill, and I don't have the exact date in front of me, I couldn't go back to locate the exact date, but Mr. Dean did inquire about his water bill, trying to figure out why the water bill was so high. Resolution, it took time for him to get a response to realize that the bill was so high because of the actual water meter size at the property. On January 17th, 2025, Mr. Dean submitted a water meter application to install a 5/8 3/4 inch water meter. On January 23rd, city staff completed the water meter downsizing from that 2-inch water meter to a 5/8. And then just 2 additional billings since that time frame. January 28th he would have been billed for November and December usage. And then March 26th, there's a bill issued from January 1st through February 28th. So on that March billing statement, he would have received the prorated bill for a 2-inch water meter and then the 5/8. So just depending on how many days he had the 2-inch and how many days he had the 5/8 inch meter. So this is highlighting just the summary of appeal, totaling $4,673.86, just with the corresponding billing periods. And then, so we are just seeking direction from council regarding the appeal. The resolution has 3 options for consideration. One would be denying the appeal in its entirety. The second would be approving the appeal in its entirety in the amount of $4,673.86. And then the last option would be to grant a portion of the appeal for a specific dollar amount. Thank you.
All right. Any initial clarifying questions for Mr. Beltran at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Barrett, sure.
Mr. Beltran, does the city have a recommendation?
As far as the recommendation, thank you. So we didn't provide a recommendation. What's been best practice, I would say, is anytime someone does, either upsize or downsize a water meter, the service rate is then reflected at that same date that the service has been changed. I think since I've been here, it's the first time that's, someone has inquired about receiving like a credit or an adjustment for a previous period for the difference in meter size. And I do want to also point out that a 2-inch meter to a 5/8 meter is specific with our rate structure. It is a big dollar difference when it comes to the base fees on both the water and the wastewater side. So I can see why this is being presented.
All right. Any other initial clarifying questions before we open up to public comment? Mr. Summers, please. Yep.
Martin, thank you. Is there what's the reason that going from residential, or to that, basically the size, not even residential, to business necessarily, but more or less going from a 5/8 inch to whatever it was, the 2/8? Like what is there a historical reason? Is that a new thing? Why is it such a jump?
So because of the size of the meter also allows for demand. So the higher the meter size, the more water,
But it's based on pipe size, is it not?
That is correct.
Okay, so pipe size. I changed my pipes. Why does it cost me so much more for hookups? And what is the price difference, just to elucidate? So residential, and what size the pipe you mentioned that you changed to versus what it is at that?
So in this case, Mr. Dean downsized from a 2-inch meter to a 5/8 meter.
Okay. The meter or the pipe?
The meter and also the piping on his side.
It's got to be both to work together. Okay,
that is
can't
correct.
exist separately. Got it. So he not only had to get a new pipe, but he also had to get a new meter to read that pipe. And that cost him whatever it cost him. Now, how much is it? Yeah, what's the price difference?
So a 2-inch water base fee is $918.50. That same base fee for a 5/8 meter is $146.34. On the sewer side, that base fee for a 2-inch meter is $1,799.33, and on the 5/8 inch meter, it's $260.54.
So what kind of water do you get with the 2-inch pipe?
Brown.
That's not the Jesus water pipe? Okay, do we know why? Is there a reason? Has that been grandfathered in, Mandy? Yeah.
Yeah, it may be the type of business that was originally being established at that location when the water meter was installed required that type of flow to support that business. But what we've determined is that this new business in that location does not require that type of flow. Therefore, we were able to downgrade the size of the meter.
So what type of business, if I may ask?
I'm not sure what the original installation date of that meter, but it.
I mean, it was a
had to go-
coffee shop for a long time.
But we're not sure what it was at the time that the meter was originally installed, when that service was implemented there. We need to
Okay.
go back and
I
look at
believe it
that.
was a laundromat.
Okay, yeah.
Big water.
Which would make sense
Big
as to why
water.
they needed a larger.
So he
size
got the old laundry, he was paying the laundry fees way. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? I'm going to open up to public comment. I assume you want to make a public comment, Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Thank you. You're more than happy to do it now.
Thank you. Okay, so almost everything was correct as far as dates and everything. The only date that was different was January 3rd was when I submitted. At least that's the emails that I found that I actually submitted for the water meter change. Because it was so slow going back and forth trying to figure this out. So September 27th, I was called by Elizabeth, who used to do the billing. I don't know if everybody knows her at the city, but she called me up and she said, Ben's standing here and he's turning the water off right now. And I said, okay, what does that mean? I said, I don't even take possession of the place till October 1st. She goes, well, he has a big past due bill and we can't allow him to go forward with this, so we're turning the water off unless you want to turn it on in your name right now. And that's basically, it was presented to me very quickly. So I said, okay. She goes, well, you already have 3 water hookups in town, so I could just use the same company, the same everything, and just get you turned on so there's no interruption in any water. Now, I was starting construction. I didn't really need water except maybe to flush a toilet or do something. So I just said, that's fine. Why don't you just do that? So then the last week in November, so the bill might have been printed on the 21st, but it came to me in the last week in November because I remember it was Thanksgiving break. I got the bill and it was like $2,800 and I flipped my lid and I think I called every single person in the city. I called Leslie, I called Elizabeth, I called everybody and I said, wait. Am I paying for Ben's past due bill? Because what is going on here? I haven't even used water and I got a $2,700 bill. She couldn't answer the question. She goes, let me see if something happened or if something went wrong. By the time she got back to me, it was almost 3 weeks later, okay? I was in New York for Christmas breaks. That's why I know that's when she called me. I was walking around the streets in the city. She called me up and she said, it was because of the meter. And I'm like, what do you mean because of the meter? She goes, you have a 2-inch meter. And I'm like, well, I don't need a 2-inch meter. I'm just a small coffee shop. Why would I ever need a 2-inch meter? Come to find out, it probably was because of the dry cleaners. At that point, by the time she found out what the cause was for the high bill, I was already at $4,300, okay? And at that point, my water usage for the 3 months before, just getting that whole time period figured out, was only $109 and $140 for sewer. So $250 was actual water use and sewer use. $4,300 was because of the 2-inch water line. So I said, what do I have to do? How do I change this? I called the plumber, called Leslie, called everybody, figured it out. By the time I got all the paperwork figured out and everything was January 3rd, I submitted to downsize it. It cost me $6,000. I had to pay encroachment and permits and fees and all this stuff, and then somebody to actually do it and a backflow preventer and all the things that come along with it. So I spent $6,000 on top of this to get the meter change. Yes, now the bill is going to be $300 or $400 a month compared to $3,200 a month or whatever it was before. But still, it was not presented to me at all what the billing was going to be or what was happening. Nobody could tell me even after the bill came. I never would have turned on the water if she would have said, here's your fee structure. And I'll tell you, I've opened 8 restaurants in my life. I've been in many cities. I'm actually in the process of looking at it in Sonoma Square right now. Everything is presented to you up front for every city. What type of usage are you? You're a restaurant. Here's your fees. But none of that was done. I was called on a whim and I was told, please turn the water on in your name right now if you need water. If not, it's getting turned off. And that's what happened. That's it.
All right, just one question. So at some point, let's assume that you waited a period of time to turn on your water, that you weren't under this pressure. You turned on your water. Okay, turn on my water now. I'm now operating. You would have had that surprise at that point, right? And then you would have had to change the meter, and you would have had, there would have been a delay then also.
I would have
correct?
come. I would if the day that I got the keys.
Yes.
I would have went down to City Hall and I would have said I need to turn my water on. I wouldn't have been called as I was in the middle of something saying Ben's turning the water off. If you want it, you got to turn it on right now. It was more of a distress thing. It was weird that I got this phone call. It was weird that Ben, my landlord now, just showed up there and was turning the water off without any warning to me.
All right.
So I would have gone through the normal process, which is I would have called the water department, they would have told me the fees, or I would have asked those questions at that time. But at that time, I wasn't even thinking straight. I'm like, wait, why is he doing this and what's happening? And then come to find out the reason why this is all happening and the reason why they're not here anymore is because the business was failing and they owed a lot of money.
Do folks in your position typically get a copy of the water bill to look at the prior use?
So
Because I'm trying to understand the theory. I'm going to break this down. So
Yep.
you're basically saying that the city should have disclosed that. But I was wondering, did you have a water bill? Like, okay, there's a 2-inch pipe here, and this is a high bill, just the base fee. What was the
No,
due diligence on your part?
He told me what the water bills were from the past, and he said they were about $2,000 a month.
Okay.
Now, that's an operating
You're talking about the
business.
owner?
The owner.
Okay, thank you.
So now the Brandon and the Sam General store up in Calistoga, my bill is about $1,800 a month because we use a lot of water. We got bathrooms flushing, we got coffee flowing, there's ice machines. So that makes sense to me when the water is actually turned on and you're actually using it. St. Helena is the only one that I know of that charges by the size of the pipe. Other places charge rates for the type of business. So once you actually start using water, then you get charged all those fees. I wasn't using any water. We used $100 worth of water, and I was paying $4,300 just to have that hookup.
Right.
And that was not made clear to me at all.
Okay. I'm just getting to the point, at some point in the future, when you got clarity.
Yes.
And you realize, oh, there's a 2-inch pipe, I don't need a 2-inch pipe, I want to downsize. There still would have been a fair amount of time
Sure.
lapse where you would have to pay for that 2-inch because there's a
And
delay.
so
I don't know
that-
how much time that would have been, but it seems to me about the same. Maybe.
That delta was probably about 3 weeks.
Okay.
So
All right.
I would agree to that 3-week delta. I don't mind that. I would say from the time that Elizabeth told me what the real bill was for, from that time backwards is what I'd be appealing.
Okay. Fair
Which
enough.
was about $4,300.
All right. Fair
That's
enough.
less than what Martin's proposing.
Okay. Oh, it is?
It is.
Well, wait a minute.
But it's not much less.
No,
But
I know.
But the bill that I had, when I talked to Elizabeth,
understand.
here's the other part that I forgot to mention. I had an agreement with Elizabeth, and then she left. So Elizabeth and she told me in an email, I have to ask my director. And then she called me and said, I asked my director. I don't know who that director is, okay? But she talked to somebody, and she agreed to proportionately go backwards in the bill and do what would have been the 5/8 during the time period. And she said, what we have to do is wait for the next billing cycle to see exactly what all the charges and fees will be, and then I'll be able to go backdate it and get you that same 5-inch from the beginning.
All right.
Elizabeth told me she got that approved, Scouts honor, and then next thing you know, by the time that next bill came and I called the office to talk to her, she was gone.
All right.
And that's when I talked to Martine for the first time, and that's when this whole thing
Yeah,
happened.
I don't know what happened there. None of us do, so we have to take you at your word.
But-
Not sure how much authority she had
but
to make
that's-
that, but.
But that's what she proposed, that's what I
Understood.
talked about
All
with
right.
her.
All right.
That was-
Any others wishing to make public comment on this matter? Any need to clarify anything, Mr. Beltran, in terms of what has been said so far? Or elucidate or add to? Bring it back to the council. Questions to try to sort this appeal out, which unfortunately is here because I think you have limited authority, right, Mr. Camello? And that's why it's here. What is that? Talk about your authority and why it's here. The dirty laundry, as I referred to earlier.
Well, I have, my authority is only under certain circumstances, and in this case, I believe there is up to 2,500. Ms. Keller can clarify that. And, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yes, so actually, your authority is 2,000, so anything above.
Ooh, it's going down.
Would need city council
All right.
approval. And same with staff. Staff doesn't have authority to make those waivers.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Fair enough. So here it is. We'll have to, go ahead, Mr. Camello. Sorry.
I just wanted to know if you caught that. So what we heard was that Ms. Elizabeth had gone to her director, which is Ms. Kellogg, and she just told you that she didn't have the authority to make that decision, and I just told you that I don't have the authority to make that decision. So,
Understood.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. Yeah, I think we all got that. Anybody have any brilliant thoughts about how to address this appeal? Anybody leaning in a certain direction?
I'm leaning to prorating it according to the timeline suggested. I think that seems fair. I think Mr. Dean is open to that and understands that there is a period there that he's taking ownership for, like any owner of a new building would. You know, you buy the place and it's got a 2-inch pipe. it's got a 2-inch pipe, and those are the apples, right? But then it's putting the notice in and changing it, et cetera. So this seems somewhat straightforward to me.
Okay.
I'm with you on that. So is Kate.
It'd probably be easier just to do a month. You can do those calculations. I mean, I did a calculation based on I call it a delay of sort of sorting it out. 3 weeks, I would say a month is, to bring it into it. I calculated the difference to be
So I think you got that backwards. 3 weeks is from when I found out that it was a 2-inch meter to changing the meter.
right.
So it's not that I didn't know it was a 2-inch meter for 3 weeks. I didn't know it was a 2-inch meter issue for 5 or 6 weeks.
Okay.
I didn't get that information for actually longer than that. So if you look at the 27th, all the way.
Let's start over and come to the microphone. So I that wasn't clear to me when you said that.
Sorry.
And that's why I need to have it clarified. There are two different timelines we're talking about. The delay, as you put it, I'm not going to say that about our staff, but the delay in getting the issue resolved, I understood that to be about a month, right?
No.
Okay.
Because
So you're now saying that's 5 weeks?
because by the time the bill got to me, it was already 5 or 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then it took another 3 weeks to clarify what that bill was for. So if you look at that time period, then once she told me it was the 2-inch water meter, it took me 3 weeks from when she told me it was the 2-inch water meter to switch it out. I'm saying once I found out that it was a 2-inch meter issue, I would pay that portion forward.
And what's the math on that?
It's probably like $1,000 or something. I don't, Martine would have to calculate that.
So the service began on September 27th, ended on the 31st, but then he wasn't aware of his bill until November 21st. So that's about a 2-month time period there from the start of the account to the first bill. The first billing period does cover 34 days, and the difference in billing is $1,358.52 for that first billing.
Okay.
And when I got the bill, it's printed on the 21st. By the time you get the bill, it's a couple days later. If maybe
All
you
right.
can prove that.
I'm just having a trouble understanding the logic behind the two different periods. Once you got notice, it took you 3 weeks to get a meter replacement.
Once Elizabeth confirmed why my bill was so high. When I called her, she couldn't give me an answer.
Okay.
We thought, when I called after the bill was printed on the 21st, which was like the last week in November, I called her up and said, why is the bill so high? That's when I threw up the red flag to everybody. She couldn't answer me if that was Ben's old bill or something transpired or what happened. Nobody can give me an answer for almost 3 weeks why it was. 3 weeks later, I got notification it was because of a 2-inch water main. I put everything in motion to change it after that. I'm saying from the time I was notified that it was a 2-inch water main issue till the time I changed it, I'll take that responsibility as the owner.
Okay.
Because I was notified at that
All right.
point
All right.
why the bill was expensive.
Okay, and so is the staff, what's the staff's position in terms of, quote, the delay in getting an answer? I'm not sure, frankly, I'm not convinced that we owed you an answer, frankly, but I'm trying to, honestly, I mean,
But there was this past.
the answer was in your bill, but I'm trying to get a sense of,
It didn't actually say it in the bill. It just said.
no, bills that an operator would have received before they started operating, water bills, that kind of thing, 2-inch pipe, that kind of thing. What would be sort of a reasonable period of time to have gotten it straightened out where, you said 2 months, seems a little long to problematic. I don't know. And I agree with that. We probably should have figured that out a little earlier. I'm not one, that person's not here, and I wasn't in the room. I don't know what was happening.
Can I just make a motion that we half the bill in half and process that? Let's move on. Boom, boom. Sounds good to you, everybody? Half, 50-50? Go half on the Billy? I mean, don't poison my coffee.
Mr. Summers, you have not been recognized. I had a question to Mr. Beltran, so I want to get that question.
My apologies,
first.
Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor.
All right.
So
I know it's a difficult spot to be in, and I don't know what that is. What would be a reasonable compromise? I see a compromise here, apparently. Ms. Summers has said that.
Yeah.
Mr. Barrett has said that. I'm amenable to that also.
No, I would agree. I mean, usually when we do receive a phone call in regards to a billing statement, why it's so high, you can go down the line by line of the bill and call out those charges. And they do just specify the size of the meter on the bill itself. So 50% of that, I think that sounds reasonable.
Would you think you're comfortable making that motion, Mr. Barrett?
I think Mr. Summers is.
He might. Do you have the second?
I'll second that comfortability with another second.
I'm more than open to the compromise, if you agree, Mr. Mayor.
Half the bill. All right. Mr. Dean, can you live with that?
I could live with it.
Okay, I want to get.
That means we're.
All right. All right. Mr. Beltran, what do you think? Do you have direction there in terms of, well, we have a motion and we have a second. We'll do a roll call. Do you have a sense of what the motion was by Mr. Barrett, the second was by Mr. Summers, as I understand it, to reduce the bill by half? As I understand it, Mr. Barrett. Is that correct?
Yes, whatever Billy said.
Yeah, half, just
Is it half?
50-50, you know.
Yeah,
All right.
even number.
All right. Roll call, please.
Try to find balance.
Councilmember Barrick.
Yes.
Summers.
Oh, yes.
Spataroto.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yes.
And Mayor Doring.
Yes, and thank you for getting us to this point, Mr. Summers. You did it. Good job. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let me get back on my agenda. Thank you, Mr. Dean. We're going to all buy at least $2,000 worth of coffee in the next 2 months. All right. Well done. All right. Okay. 11.3, let's see here. Yeah, 11.3. Review and discussion of the proposed temporary street closures and operation of mobile food vendors for the 2025 St. Helena Porch Fest on Sunday, September 28, 2025. I'll let you introduce the staff member, Mr. Camelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just turn it over to Director Jens.
Director Johns, thank you.
There we go. Good evening again, Mayor, council members. I have a brief background presentation, and then if you're willing, we have the event organizers here will provide a little bit more detailed context on their proposal as part of the presentation. So to provide you all with a little bit of background of how we've gotten to this point in time. So Porch Fest, many of you may be familiar with it, but if you're not, Porch Fest is a free community event with a focus around live music. There's rotating performances that happen within a specific walkable footprint event in a given community. I'll share this is not a proposal that is unique to St. Helena. It has taken place in various communities. I think most recognizable and notable for our community is the Porch Fest that took place in Napa from 2011 through 2023. This is being organized by a group of local organizers. This is not being put forward as a city event. The Parks and Rec Commission did discuss this at both their May 5th and June 16th meetings. After the May 5th meeting, receiving feedback from the commissioners as well as public comment and staff, the organizers submitted requests for an encroachment permit, amplified sound, and road closures. As you're well aware, the final review and authority to implement road closures and the mobile food vendors is at the discretion of the council. And so our intent is to provide you information this evening. We'd love to get your feedback, direction, any future questions, and then bring it back for your formal consideration if you so choose on July 22nd. So a quick highlight of the current proposed framework. It is proposed to take place on Sunday, September 28th. The location, which we'll have a map up on the screen for you shortly, is in the Adams, Kearney, Stockton, Tainer neighborhood. The event time is being proposed as 12:30 to 5, with the road closures to support that event a little bit longer to make sure there's time for setup and breakdown from 11 to 6. As I mentioned before, different types of music, different start times taking place. The proposers are not asking to have alcohol sold at the event, and open containers would not be permitted. Next slide. So the
Except on private property, correct?
correct. We're talking about in the public
Right,
in the
okay,
public realm.
yep.
So the proposed road closures, as I mentioned before, Adams, Kearney, Tainter, and Stockton. My next slide will give you a visual of that map. Again, proposed from the 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. time frame. The visual that's up there is I want to make sure everyone's clear on what we're talking about when we reference hard closures versus soft closures. So all elements of the event footprint would be enclosed by what we're calling as hard closures, and these are water-filled K-rails. You see these at many events. They prevent vehicles from entering the facility. We use them for other events such as Harvest Festival. There are 2 locations on the map which we've put in place at the recommendation of our fire chief that would allow for emergency vehicles in and out of the facility if needed. So next slide, please. So this is the proposed map. You'll see it again from our organizers as well. The red areas on the map indicate the specific event footprint. The red X's are where those hard closures, where those K-rails would be. A little hard to see the difference between the red and the orange, but the lighter colored X's, those are those specific emergency access points. Again, those would be K-rails with a vehicle centered in between them, so still a hard closure from vehicles getting in, but could be moved if we had to get emergency vehicles into the space. The green areas are what we're referencing as soft closures, meaning vehicles can get in and out of there, but there would be signage saying this is for local traffic only, and that is being proposed to keep event parking out of the local neighborhood. So that's the green location on the map. I will note that the Kearney Street closure is currently being discussed with the organizers based on the location of the existing porches that have agreed to the event that may be shortened and brought down closer to Adams Street to minimize neighbor impact in that area. So some changes that took place since the initial proposal on May 5th and since the city received their initial proposal on May 1st. I think the big one that I didn't note here is the date change. This was originally proposed for Labor Day weekend, but based on feedback, concerns about the heat, concerns about interruption on a holiday weekend, the event proposers have moved the date back to September 28th. No longer working in partnership with the St. Helena Historical Society. That was part of the original proposal. The organizers have submitted on their own behalf as a local organizing committee since then. As I mentioned before, the event maps have been modified. Carpy Field was originally part of the proposal, is no longer part of the proposal due to some expected maintenance on that field by the school district. And the map has been condensed. Allen and portions of Tainter no longer included, and as I mentioned, looking at shortening the closure on Kearney. Mentioned the local traffic areas. Another change is the organizers have reached out to a professional traffic control company to run the road closures. The main reason being our Public Works Department simply does not have the amount of equipment needed to support this level of event. So they're working directly with a professional traffic control company, utilizing a company called Green Mary, which will help with trash recycling and compost, as well as making it an eco-friendly event. And from a security standpoint, they would be contracting, or we would be utilizing St. Helena police officers. Right now, based on the scope, our police department says they're comfortable with 2 officers. Is if the event got closer and we expected attendance to increase, that number would increase to 4. The local organizers would be responsible for reimbursement of that direct staff time of using police officers. And also the addition of a volunteer neighborhood ambassador program, which I will let the organizers explain in more detail when we get to their slides. So as I mentioned before, this item's gone before the Parks and Recreation Commission twice so far. First as an additional discussion item, and then for their formal recommendation. The commission on June 16th did recommend approval of the event with some stipulations in place. Their recommendations were to not waive the permit fees as being requested by the organizing committee until the 501c3 status was finalized and confirmed. That we confirm insurance in levels that our city insurance provider and attorney's office are comfortable. We've had those conversations since that meeting. The commissioners asked to explore a plan to address immediate parking within the vicinity, not necessarily a detailed parking plan, but ways to minimize parking in the area. So that's something we're continuing to discuss with the organizers, and we'll have more information to share as we bring this item back to you all. and also that our public safety departments are comfortable with this event should we see an increase beyond the expected attendance. And so to answer bullet points 2 and 4, we've spoken with both our insurance provider and attorney's office and have insurance requirements in place that would be different triggers based on the expected attendance. And our public safety has shared, and I know Lieutenant Tharp's here to speak on a law enforcement aspect, but they would be prepared to respond accordingly should we see an increase in attendance. So with that, I'm happy to pause here, and if okay with the council and Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce 2 members of the organizing committee to provide
Absolutely.
their proposal. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I'd like to introduce Rachel Clark and Alex Weeks with Napa Valley Music Alliance.
Welcome to the city of St. Helena.
Thank you. So, yeah, as said, my name is Alex Weeks, and this is Rachel Clark. We represent Napa Valley Music Alliance. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to the advocacy, planning, and organizing of music events throughout Napa Valley. So, a little bit about us. You know, as was mentioned, the original I hope was that we would be able to partner with the Historical Society. They weren't interested, so we decided to incorporate as a nonprofit ourselves and go through that process. As of May 9th, 2025, we are a nonprofit in the state of California, and that's under California Corporation Code Section 5110. We incorporated as a nonprofit. We are legally a nonprofit. The 501c3 tax status, now that is something that's still pending. The difference between those is a 501c3 will eliminate our individual tax liability, so we don't have to pay taxes on the money that goes to this event, and it would also make all donations to the event tax deductible. So I wanted to clarify the difference between the two. We are a nonprofit corporation. It's the tax liability that we're working on there. Next slide.
So what is Porch Fest? So Porch Fest was originally started in Ithaca, New York by a couple of folks that play ukuleles and said, let's get together and create this idea. And so they came together and created the idea and gathered up 20 bands to make it happen in September of that year. Next slide, please. So Napa Porch Fest started in 2011, and we are the first city in California or west of the Mississippi that created that. I'm one of the original co-founders, along with Louisa Hofstetter, Thea Whistle, and the other lady from Landmarks. She passed away. And Juliana Inman, but then there was another lady with the Landmarks or the Historical Society. But so, and we started that, and then I stayed on for 8 years, and then took care of my father on hospice. And Ernie is here, and so is Annie, and they did it, I think, for 13 years as well, and they're on our committee. So Napa Porch Fest went 12 years without any legal incident. And just for clarification, Napa County Landmarks is no longer sponsoring the event. They were the original nonprofit that was the umbrella for the event. So Napa County Landmarks wanted to focus on advocacy of historical preservation and conservation. So they decided to back out, and Napa County, or the city of Napa, is looking for a nonprofit to move forward with the Napa Porch Fest. Next slide, please. Go ahead.
Yep. So a little bit about the event we are proposing. We are looking for around 15 porches. We currently have 12 signed up, so we got 3 more coming in. 21 bands is a maximum that we have set right now. And it's going to span a lot of different genres of music. We have a couple of local jazz ensembles. We have a local string quartet. Obviously, we got rock bands. We got funk bands. We got folk. We got Delta blues, Americana. You can go through the list there. The point I'm trying to make is we're looking for diversity of music styles and cultures within Napa County. And when I say these bands, these 21 bands, they are Napa County based. We're not bringing in bands from out of state or out of county or anything like that. We want to focus on the music and the culture of Napa County itself.
And at least one resident lives in St. Helena, right?
We have multiple. Yeah. So next thing, hit next real quick. There you go. So just by way of comparison, because I know Napa gets brought up quite a bit here. In the last year at Napa Porch Fest, it was roughly 150 bands across roughly 73 porches. We're proposing is so much smaller. 21 porches, or 21 bands, 15 porches. I'm a musician. I played Napa Porch Fest multiple years, and the size it got to was just too big. It wasn't fun to play at the end anymore. Rachel?
So yeah, I just want to provide the information to that is that we've gotten feedback and participation by the St. Helena Parks and Rec. We've been working great with the Parks and Rec. Thank you so much. We've got feedback from St. Helena Fire Department, the Police Department, and our local community members. We've listened and we've met with folks and we've met with them at coffees over at Sam's. And so this is a really a grassroots movement. And we are local residents. I am, Glenn is, and our community band member, I believe, is as well. So we live here. This is our community, and we're Napa County residents.
All right, so next slide, please. So this looks exactly like what you saw before. The dark red X's are the hard closures. The orange ones that can maybe look a little yellowy, those would be the soft closures where you would have the two K-rails with a vehicle in between, so should an emergency vehicle be need to get into the area, we can pull those in and out. The fire chief recommended those two locations. Green are soft closures, and that is just to minimize impact of some of the neighbors around the area. And as Director Jan said, there has been discussion of moving the Kearney hard closure location. Currently, we haven't actually reflected that on the map yet. There's still some discussion that has to be had. We had originally been told the city would want us to be at corners and not partial streets, but we'd like to pull that one back and maybe put a soft closure there just to make sure there's some safety and the local residents can get in and out of there.
Well, and just a point of reference to Kearney Street, as you know, they've been impacted with so much construction and the remodels and everything. So we're listening to our community members and we're trying to, work those issues out. So.
Yes. All right. So next. This just represents locations that we're proposing to put food trucks and food pop-up locations. The number of icons do not indicate the number of, say, food trucks or pop-ups, but the idea would be to have some food trucks over on Kearney, on Adams and Tainter, right around the Carpy Field area, and then some select locations for like 10 by 10 pop-ups, maybe shaved ice or cotton candy or some local vendor who wants to provide something but doesn't need the full impact of a truck itself.
And just to point out too, real quick, we are supporting local vendors, so St. Helena centric. We really want to focus on this as a St. Helena event.
Yep. Next slide. Waste is and cleanup is a big issue that we want to make sure that we mitigate. We have contracted with Up Valley Waste Management, so all those locations there where you see the trash icons, there will be trash and recycling sorting stations at each of those locations, so that there'll be plenty of opportunity to not throw stuff on the ground. And if somebody does, we're contracting with Green Mary, who will do cleanup, recycling, and trash services. We want to keep the neighborhood clean. We respect the neighborhood, and we want to make sure we keep it as clean as we found it, if not cleaner. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, and so Nap, thank you so much. I work well with you, and and this team. You guys are doing great. So I just want to share with you that Green Mary's also done the Napa Porch Fest, I believe, for 4 years, and they've done an exceptional job. So the only thing we leave is our footprint and maybe some joy and music and experiences.
Next slide, please. Then restrooms. We're proposing, to have some porta potties brought in, but then also there's some public restroom locations around there. We want to make sure people have access to be able to do their business when and where needed.
Right. Oh, yeah. So we have contracted out. We are going to be we have the ADA accessible restrooms at the Catholic Church. We also have porta potties that are going to be at the Catholic Church parking lot. And we were working with, and we're trying to see if we can utilize some portion thereof of Carpy Field where the existing porta potties are at. So we're still trying to reach out with the school board.
And then next slide. This is a map of the current porches that we have signed up. There is one icon that needs to be shifted over just a little bit there, but these are all people who have signed up and said that they want to be a part of this. They want to have bands actively playing in their area. Again, 12 porches up there, 3 more may be signed. The artisan porch selection process is still happening right now. But one thing that's really important to note here is that set times will be staggered. All bands will get an hour and a half to play. Set times will be 12:30, 2 o'clock, or 3:30, and it's going to be staggered in such a way where the musicians, like myself, there's nothing worse than being in the middle of playing a set and there's a band starting right across the street from you. So it's going to be staggered to minimize sound bleed between bands. Also to encourage traffic and foot flow, to keep people moving around looking for that next band throughout the neighborhood. The current proposed set times that we have would have 7 bands, maybe 8 playing at any given time throughout the map and area. Next slide. Rachel?
Okay, so what is a neighborhood ambassador? So it's to foster goodwill, ensure smooth communication, to provide warm and informed hospitality to neighbors and guests, and give directions and answer facts. They will be located at entry points near food vendors and near map kiosks. Resident liaison, will address concerns in real time, engage directly with homeowners on route, and resolve concerns. So every block will have participating porches. We also will have safety and flow member monitors, and I'm just trying to read that. So, and watch for crowd buildup, but we have the set time staggered so where it's just a nice flow. It's going to be a really good flow. We're also going to ask people to give us community feedback, what's worked, what didn't, and ask them in real time. So we'll do that. And also, just to let you know, when we talk about neighborhood ambassadors, our law enforcement will be present. We've asked them to bring the little badges because the kids love those stickers. Also, the fire chief, I'm not the fire chief, but the fire personnel are excited to participate in, and they'll also have stickers. And we've also spoke with AMR. So it's really about building community and connectivity.
Next slide.
So we would love for anybody to be a Porch Fest ambassador and volunteer for St. Helena Porch Fest. There'll be 2-hour shifts, time slots between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And and I think that is it.
That's it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do you need us to sit down or stand here if you have questions?
You can sit down for now. I
Thank
think.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not sure. Let me just open it for public comment at this point and invite public comment from anybody who wishes to speak on the issue. While people are thinking about public comment, I want to let you know that we've received a significant amount of public comment in written form attached to the agenda, a lot of different comments from different perspectives. But back to you, sir. Welcome.
Yeah, my name is John Hannaford, and I'm from Napa, and I'm a community-minded person myself. I actually have been the chair of the Public Art Steering Committee for the city for about 6 years. And that's what the best part about this event is community. It's not like it's a public event that's free for this community. The bands are from the community. The communities love it. It's become Napa's favorite community event, and which it will be back. And so I just wanted to say it's actually a win-win for communities. And that's true for the whole Porch Fest movement. I've actually also played at the one in Winters before, and I've attended a lot of other ones, and they're great events. And just as the two were just talking about, and they're absolutely the people to be doing this, as long as you keep the event a certain size, it's going to be really successful. Napa's was a certain size for many, many, many years and always successful. And it did during that last year. The people that happened to be doing the promoting things got a little overzealous and had too many bands, but that was just had nothing to do with Porch Fest movement or anything. So it's a really wonderful event for a community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I couldn't help but notice that I was not invited to perform with my ukulele. Even so, I think this is a fabulous idea, a fabulous event. This is the way music should be presented, played, participated in. I've done a lot of music festivals, a lot of music events, and my favorite part of all of this is just the people that gather somewhat informally and just play. That's the way music should be, in my mind. I think this is a great event, and I support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Even without my ukulele.
Hi, my name is Dave Kearney Brown, and we have a local band called Soda Canyon, so you can tell it's local because of the name. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful for the organizers of this event. And as a singer-songwriter, I mean, it's so supportive to the arts to have venues like this where there isn't a lot of expectation that you're going to play a Mustang Sally for the 5 millionth time. You know, we have original music, we have a really fresh sound. So I mean, it's great to provide this venue. And the other thing I want to say about it is just I know that everybody I knew in Napa circled this event on their calendar every year. Local people. It's really very much a local event, and it was very much treasured and very much look forward to. So I just think that's a wonderful thing to have that in a community, that kind of celebration. So thank you for considering.
Thank you.
Hello, Catherine Gold, 1257 Stockton. We're on the corner of Stockton and Tainter. In an email dated May 3rd in response to a local resident voicing concerns about the event, the organizers stated that, quote, "No one is required to participate or host." I would respectfully disagree with that statement, as those of us within the hard closure would by default have to participate, as vehicle access in and out of our homes will be non-existent for approximately 7 to 8 hours during the event. That's a concern in the event of an emergency or if it called into work unexpectedly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, my name is Graham Jones. I live on Kearney Street. You've all received my emails. Thank you for moving on. Hopefully there will be a movement moving the hard closure down to Adams from Kearney. Thank you for that. I do have a couple of questions though. Why is the event organizer who lives on Stockton Street not hosting at her house? My next point is, who is actually making money off this event? I think it's exploiting the homeowners in this neighborhood, and it sets a dangerous precedent for future events. Thank you.
Thank you for your brevity. We have read your notes, so thank you.
Catherine Dan,
Welcome.
1445 Stockton. I'm right in the heart of this whole road closure. I'm completely in support of it. I think it's a great idea. I think this town needs to have a little bit of fun, especially for 4 hours on a Sunday. My neighbor was awesome. She came to me and she said, "I'm going to have music on my porch." All of us, all surrounding, because we all know each other, all said, "That's awesome." My porch is going to be open with a barbecue for all my friends to be enjoying. So I think it's a great idea, and I hope St. Helena moves forward with it, because I think we need to have a little bit more fun in this town. Hence, Halloween, I mean, yes, it's a burden. Nobody wants to have it. Well, I do, but a lot of people don't. But, you know, that's a crazy time in our town. And this is just going to be something fun, music, family. It's going to be an awesome event. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to close the public comment, bring it back to the council for a little bit more discussion and give some direction. One of my major concerns, and maybe this can be addressed, is the financial viability of the company. I'm a lawyer, so that's where I'm thinking. I'm thinking about what if something were to go wrong and who's responsible for that. Well, our city apparently will have a fair amount of insurance coverage, depending on size, right? We have that covered, but what about the actual entity itself? I'm a little concerned because of the, let me just backtrack. I'm going right there because that's where my brain goes. I'm supportive of music. I'm supportive of arts. I'm supportive of more cultural events. Those things are great for a community, especially like ours. We need to do more about that. But I don't want to take on unnecessary risk. And if there is risk, I want to spread that risk to someone who should be responsible for it, not the city. And so that's a concern I have, is that you have a nonprofit. I understand that there was a switch because there was another nonprofit maybe you're thinking about joining forces with. Now you decided, okay, well, we have to adjust here, and congratulations for adjusting. But there is a concern that I have, and it would be more comforting to me if there was an actual budget presented at some point. Say, okay, these are the dollars coming in, these are the dollars going out. not right now, but, we're not going to make a final decision, I don't think, tonight on it. Maybe we will, we'll see. But I would want more sort of what we would do in the due diligence we would do with any applicant in an event of this size. Is there the sufficient coverage? Can they get insurance? And then when do we have to make the decision? I think that's important for us because the more information, the better for me. I know we're running out of time, but that's the main concern for me. Yes, there is an intrusion. Yes, there is, I was telling some folks a while back that, our neighbors have a film crew coming in a couple times a year, and it is a pain in the, but it is a little bit of income for the city, and we adjust around it. And it's all day, and it's just completely covered with vehicles everywhere. It's a little bit of a craziness. So I understand that feeling of being intruded in the neighborhoods. I ran for city council and as mayor with the idea that we have to protect these valuable neighborhoods. But I also see potential, joy that we're missing sometimes in our communities. And so I always try to find compromise where I can, try to satisfy as many folks as possible. My inclination is to see how it goes, but I'm concerned about sort of the quick way this is coming together, and I'm not comfortable. I'm comfortable with all the speakers, but I'm not comfortable with this process of having a viable entity that has a track record and that can meet the moment if there is a liability issue coming up. And those are my initial thoughts right now. I'm generally sort of okay with it on a small level. I do not want this to grow. I think you've made the case that it's very small. Some people will be put out, not being able to get to their homes. But, life is, I don't want to minimize that because it is important. Folks have plans for their homes or whatever, and it's an adjustment. But those are my thoughts. I want to hear from others on these matters and see what the pulse is. Obviously, they can't get their insurance, and that's a no deal, right? I would assume, I'm just concerned. Do we have a budget that's been presented to us or any other financial information that we would normally or should normally get to go, yeah, that's a viable entity, and if something goes south, we are covered. Mr. Walsh?
Sure. So,
or Mr. Jazz, whoever. I mean, more information, the better.
Right. So, I guess there's a couple different ways that we would approach this. If this were something where we were partnering with them on it, and we were, say, a co-sponsor or somehow involved in putting it on, then we would generally, ask for a budget and that type of thing, and make sure it's a viable enterprise. In this situation where really our role is as a regulatory body where we're potentially issuing permits to them so that they can actually use the public space. In my experience, we typically wouldn't ask for a budget in that instance because we're not kind of reliant, we're not partnering with them and say if, let's say for just worst case scenario, they don't pay their vendors, that type of thing, that's really a private matter that they have to work out. But we're really worried about the potential liability if there's an injury or some kind of incident where we could have exposure. And so for that, what we would expect is that they meet our insurance requirements. And so we would, if that's the case, what we would do is if we were going to issue the permits, before we ever issued the permits, we would require that they provide us with the certificates of insurance that show that they actually had the insurance, had listed the city as an additional insured, and had the adequate coverage that we were requiring based on our consultations with our provider.
Right. I'm a little concerned that time is ticking, and if you get too far along and you're advertising this, and it's a bad look for the city if you have to cancel at the last minute if the documentation is not there.
Certainly. Yes, time is of the essence. I know the organizers are very anxious to get an answer so that they can move forward accordingly with seeking sponsorship. As far as the process goes, we'll wait for council direction, and then if approved, then we would move forward with issuing encroachment noise, road closure permits, and when those require that there's also at that point are submitting their certificates of insurance, and also the payment for services for staff's time. So we'll have our anticipated costs, which would be required to be paid up front in the above part of that agreement is above and beyond. If we had to call in and say additional officers, that would be paid after the fact.
It's surprising. I understand the point you're making, Mr. Walsh, but it does surprise me to a certain degree that there's an extensive output of money here required to have to reimburse our officers, to deal with waste, to just deal with a lot of logistical issues that's expensive or relatively expensive. I don't know where that money's coming from. If the money's there, I would have more comfort if I did know that, yeah, we have raised this amount of money or we have this amount of money. Just the issue of the ability to perform, I think we have a right, maybe not I would ask for it. Maybe we don't have a practice or a legal standing to ask for it, but it would be more comforting to know that they can perform.
Sure. No, that's fair. And especially, I mean, I can see you making that point, especially with regard to the trash removal and that type of thing. And I think you have the discretion to require that. I was just saying when we're functioning as a regulatory body, we typically don't do that.
Understood. Mr. Barrick, sorry.
Following on to,
go ahead.
I think your excellent points, Mr. Mayor, perhaps an escrow account or some type of vehicle where that money that's due the city is placed in escrow beforehand, so we don't have to play guessing games and that the money's there.
I think excellent points. And so of the grand scheme, and I know the organizers can speak higher to their budget, they shared at the Parks and Recreation Commission, they feel this event would cost about $27,000 to put on. Of that, direct costs to the city are fairly minimal, right? There's the potential associated permit fees and the direct staffing costs, with the recommendation to have them work with a traffic control company, working with other trash receptacles. Really, our direct staff time is related to those law enforcement numbers. So not that that's a nothing amount, but it's a pretty small number compared to the overall costs of the event. But absolutely.
Director Jans, if there's a failure to perform, to our mayor's point, whose responsibility is it to clean up the residents and the surround?
So that is part of their conditions. And so I think to answer the first part, probably not of your question, so that is the responsibility of the organizers. If that didn't happen, that would fall back, of course, on the city to clean up the city streets if they did not perform. But that's part of their agreement, part of what they would be agreeing to. No different than other community events that we've seen.
That might be an opportunity to have escrow, right? Where, hey, if it is performed, the money is there, right? I'm not uncomfortable, but I'm not completely comfortable yet with liability, security. I know that's coming from our police department, et cetera. I'd also, on top of that, like to ask the residents that are located in these closures and disruption points, do we know the percentage of residents that are thumbs up in those zones? And is there any kind of threshold in the past, I don't know, in cities of what's that threshold of approving these in a residential area? This isn't in the downtown core. The zone is residential. What's the city's and staff's thought on that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. We don't have a scientific, a mathematical tally to say this many in favor, this many against. I can share we've received significant feedback on both sides. I would say that the pros certainly outweigh the cons, but that being said, I've spoken to many of the members who have submitted or come to talk public comment, and I'm very respectful and understanding of where their concern is. This is a different event space than what we're typically accustomed to, right? A lot of times events that we're putting on hosting in cities are not in residential areas. You host an event and you ask people to come to the event. This is a little bit different. The event is brought to the residency, whether you're participating in the event or not. So I know we as staff are very aware of that, very conscious of the concerns that are put out there. I think to answer your question about whether there's a threshold, I couldn't say for sure what other jurisdictions look for. The only event that comes to mind that has a similar impact, but not to the same level, Harvest Festival, we do have residential impact, but again, that's a shorter period of time, and I think there's also that level of, as we've talked about, a little bit of proof of concept, right? That's 37 years in the running, and so I think neighbors know what that expectation is there.
Let me interrupt the process right now and look for a motion. We're at 9 o'clock. We'll look for a motion to extend to 9:30. I don't want to be here till 9:30, but we'll give ourselves a little wiggle room. Anybody interested in making a motion to give us a little bit more time because we're at 9 o'clock?
I make a motion to extend to 9:30.
There's a motion. There's a
Second the motion.
There's a second by Mr. Summers. All in favor of extending, if need be, to 9:30? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, we got that. Madam Clerk, are you happy there? Okay, now back. I'm going to move to Vice Mayor Deasy. Then we may want to entertain a little bit more clarification on a couple of the issues, just for transparency. We all know. Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to say I do hear and respect the real concerns raised by the residents around safety and insurance and noise and neighborhood access. I can't help but agree that it would be a great event. I'd love to go. My friends and neighbors would. I had the same questions you did around financial viability, and so I wanted, when you bring those specifics, I wanted to maybe add on one more thing, is like, when did you apply for that IRS, for the 501c3 status? Did you use a Form 1023 EZ or a Form 1023? Because I think there's a difference in time when you would expect. And then one more thing is, I'm guessing that you're, same kind of thing with the budget, but you're raising money for this, and so what is the expectation? And I'm wondering if it's as much as not having the money, but the canceling thing. What does that mean if it's canceled? We didn't get enough sponsorship. So if you could talk to that when you give the details, that would be great.
Any other questions that we may want to direct? I'll let you address some of these issues right now. I'm sorry, Mr. Summers, did you have, I missed you. Go ahead, sorry.
That's okay. Thanks, Mayor. I'm leaning towards the side of yes, because in our current state of, lack of community connection between, young and old and in between, we also are in a financial state where we need to be seeking balance. And this is probably one of the lightest, I think, most interesting and like human communally connecting events possible that just landed at our doorstep. Now, I've promoted a lot of events over the years in my background. They need as much time as they can get. And I don't think we can mess around and fuddy-duddy like we have in the past over things and pay someone to think about it. I say it's a good event. I trust them. They've done it for years and years and years. And as far as like talking about sort of like the insurance, I mean, working in film and in music, that's sort of the pedestrian side of it. Like, we got to do our research and know, like, hey, that's liability insurance that happens all over the country every day for events all over. And as far as the people that need to, be sorry that they can't leave the house every day, I respect that. But, I mean, there's people in communities that I've lived in that are so thankful for there's music, food, and entertainment, and friends and family coming together. So, hey, sorry, we're in a financial difficulty right now where we need every little piece. We got to bring it together with balance, thoughtfulness, Mayor. I respect, the liability is critical because you can't have fun unless you're safe. And so I believe these guys have been doing this for over a decade. They're working their hard. And to be a 501c3, all one has to do is operate and act like a 501c3. I spoke with my lawyer earlier just to clarify that. And that's, I think I'm feeling good enough to go, let's go for it. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this for now and get Dave going, get everybody going, get our city going the direction we need to go, and not find one big source of revenue, but lots of little ones. And this will put us on the map. It'll bring people to our community and keep bringing them back to our community because they had such a fun, nice time. Remember when we ate and the guy's name was Jude and he cooked the best short rib I've ever had in my life? Let's go back there, honey. It's only 15 minutes away from us. You know what I mean? You got to think a little broader and bigger than this one event. And now if Napa messed up on it for various reasons, that puts us in a better position to not mess up because we've got data. Now, the other thing that everyone's saying is, how much are we making and how much is, like, what's it cost? What do we get, and how much is it? Right. That's the final question. So, if we could get data points on revenue increases with businesses as well as population increases, that's where I'm looking. And I'd like to make a motion to just make it happen right now with that. Do we have to do anything different, Ethan? Unless we're not finished with the discussion and it's too early. Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you answer the question. I don't see a second at this point, so we'll address. We need to keep it fairly brief here and tight because we have one more item on our agenda tonight.
Okay, we will. Thank you so much for the very good questions. Just to let you guys know that we've been at this since January. So we've met now every single Wednesday since January. Every single Wednesday. We've been actively working on this. I provided the insurance permit because anytime you ask for an encroachment, you have to provide the insurance. So I've purchased the insurance and the city is named in that as well. So that is submitted to the packet to your city, is it Public Works or, so your packet requires that. And so that has been submitted.
Under whose name is the insurance?
Napa Valley Music Alliance, St. Helena Porch Fest, I believe.
Okay. Be something to look at. I'd like to look at whatever was submitted. Keep going.
Either way, I can make whatever the adjustments. The first one was under St. Helena Historical Society. Now it's already been submitted.
The City of St. Helena is listed as
in it. And I know it's $1 million and then $2 million for a general aggregate. And these events, these permit or these insurance policies and special riders are familiar. We do them all the time. All the cities do them, and that's what's required, and we've fulfilled that requirement.
That's really not the issue I'm getting to. I understand that actually has to be done. I'm concerned about liability exposure based on things that happen to residents, to folks, to participants,
right.
Those kinds of things. That liability would not be covered on something that's insuring the city in general, correct? I mean, indirectly, I suppose it could be, but what do you think about that?
So are you asking if, say, a resident?
So they claim that they have a certificate of insurance that qualifies it provides sufficient insurance, and that the city of St. Helena is a named insured.
Right.
But what about other exposures, other liabilities that are not sort of the city of St. Helena, but they're to, residents, drivers, whatever. I'm not comfortable that there is an adequate source of funds for that, or would that be covered in such a policy? I don't think it would be, but.
So, okay, so if they had a policy, they would be named in the policy, and then the city would be named in the policy.
Right.
If someone were injured at the festival and they filed a claim against their entity,
that's right.
Then that would be covered.
What is
by
our
their
minimum
insurance.
requirement?
So that's kind of still in flux. We're talking with and it depends on what we project the size of the event to be.
Understood.
So the baseline is $1 million, $2 million aggregate, but if it's going to be a larger event, it may be higher than that.
Okay.
And I also got a special medical rider on that.
Well, that's good information. The more information, the better.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, thank you. Okay, what
And
else?
And then just on the setting an escrow account and being concerned about our financials, just to let you know, it's $6,700 for the traffic company. It's $2,700 for Green Mary, and Alex can speak to the budget, but really I feel like it kind of sets a dangerous precedence to request a community event to hold something in escrow. We have no problem paying for the police and fire. We've talked with them, but I really feel that we've been working at this for a very long time. Glenn and I have walked the neighborhoods, I want to say at least 32 times. So I just want you to know that we've really done the work and put in the footwork. And go ahead and you can speak on.
I'll be quick and simple on the funds. As said earlier, and we can provide a more detailed budget, estimated cost is going to be around $27,000. Revenues to cover that is going to be through corporate, private sponsorships, as well as things like T-shirt sales. which we're hoping to get up there. We've already received a few $1,000s in indirect support going towards that, and we also have quite a few sponsors that are just waiting for an approval date to cash us over. I have a guitar coming from Taylor, the Taylor Guitar Company in Southern California, that will be auctioning off to raise funds for this. So we're actively in pursuit of that. We have a lot of interest on it. We're just waiting on the date. And then the last question about the IRS filing. The IRS filing happened on May 14th. It was a 1023 EZ. At the time, the IRS said 80% of 1023 EZs would get approved within 22 days. However, at the beginning of this year, our federal workforce had a reduction. And right now, they are saying that they are working on applications from April 22nd and earlier. So I estimate it's going to be about another month to get our 1020. Yeah, it's not a 22-day time frame. So based upon what I've seen, I'm estimating it'll be about another month to get our IRS tax deductible status. But again, per California Corporation Code 5110 et al., we are a nonprofit organization. So
No,
were there
we
any other
understand
questions?
that. Okay, thank you.
And then we're also partnering with Upper Valley Disposal as well.
I understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the additional information. All right, bring it back. Other thoughts? Ms. Deasy?
Thank you for that. That's just my key. It's not, I understand that you're operating as a nonprofit, but when can people donate? And I would be very excited about the event. But I always know that it's always a little bit harder to raise money than you think it is. So I'm very hopeful this will happen. I'm just trying to understand the nonprofit date hits here, and let's give you a month to raise it, and then we know where we are, and then what's that timing.
All right. What direction do we want to give on this? Mr. Barrick, what are you thinking? Conditional direction? I mean, they meet all of our requirements. I mean, it sounds like we have a motion. We didn't get a second yet, but what's the way around this? Because they have been working hard. We're at this point. I'm not sure what my decision will be, but do we have sort of points in time where they go, okay, you have to be able to show that these things are, you hired the trash folks, you got the security down, all these things are done. Isn't it better to get that up front? But I'm concerned that they haven't raised the money yet. So this is kind of I don't want to just squash this. But at some point, if we get closer to the event and we don't have the money raised to do all these things, and that's not good either.
And to answer kind of the intent of tonight's discussion was to bring it forward. You get your list of kind of generally where you're standing, get your list of questions. If there's anything you want brought back to you. I know the organizers are anxious to get approval. I've shared with them and with community members that the intent was to bring it back at your next meeting, which happens to be July 22nd. So if there's items that we think we can hit before then, I think, similar to perhaps the fireworks discussion, if there's certain dates where you want to hit certain stipulations, we can certainly put that into our conditions as well.
Well, I mean, I'll trust the staff to do that. I'm not going to try to do that tonight, but I do think we need a little bit more information before we call the question tonight. But it's up to the council to decide whether they want to do that. Ms. Patarotto.
So I have a couple things. I think this is a great idea. I think it could be a really good event. My biggest concerns, along with mayor and vice mayor, liability, but safety. But knowing that you've spoken, you've done your work, and thank you, by the way, for all of this hard work that you've already put in for this. And I know that this is obviously not your first rodeo, but it is in the only sense that you're creating a new company, that you're working. And I understand that. My question would be, in order for us to move forward, I guess the backup question is, what can you, and this may be directed at them, what can you do without approval that would help alleviate some of the concerns by my constituents? The insurance. So the financials, I think, is the biggest concern.
We have people waiting to give us money, but it's all
Yeah, that was.
Speak from the mic. It's better for all of us. That's okay. I think we have that. We got that down. Okay. Any more direction that we need? Well, Ms. Summers has made a motion. I'm not sure if there's a second. It doesn't look like there's a second. The intent was to flesh this out a little bit more and bring it back. I think that was the recommendation in the staff report.
Don't we not have another meeting for 2 weeks and then another 2 weeks? Is that true?
Our next meeting is on July 22nd.
Right. So that kind of hoses these guys. I'm the guy with the most background in producing events, and I don't like doing events because it's a lot of work, and people always miss A, B, C, D, E. You never want to use E plan, but these guys are very qualified, very prepared. The insurance is not an issue. If you're trying to be the fun police and replay the movie Footloose, right now we're the city council here. Let the children dance. Let the children play. That's what I say. Let's go today. Have some faith. And it's not a big deal. Here's the deal. I'll guarantee if the money doesn't come through by when we need it, I will personally guarantee the money for our entire town, because that's how much I care about people having fun, coming together. What's better than good food, good conversation, good community? That's where I'm at with it. So if everyone's down, and you know me, hey. Mr. Mayor?
Put it in an escrow. No, I think we need, I think, Mr. Summers? All right. I'm trying to do the best for our community. We have a lot of folks out there who have expressed different views. We have a responsibility to act responsibly to our constituents. I'm not foreclosing the fact that, you've said we should act now. I haven't seen a second. So I'm taking the cue from my counsel. There's not a second to do that.
But perhaps a compromise, a conditional approval?
Okay. Amend the motion a little bit on a conditional to what?
To list out, right, there's a list, I believe in the staffing report, and Director Jans step in when I fumble, because I will, but I believe, right, we've got the insurance, there's police that they need. You had asked for some more details on the financing, which I don't disagree with in our previous discussion. There could be others from other council members, but I suggest we put those on the table, and if they can produce that, maybe we go forward. Unless there's 3 votes just to go.
Chief signed off on it. Police and fire have already done all the work, the background, safety-wise, so we're 100% there. These guys have done all their work. It's just our uncomfortability because we didn't do all our background research, or we're not familiar with this particular genre. But I'm backing it. Go ahead. And I think we should ask Dave. Dave knows more than we do. Where's he at with his comfortability? If it was up to you, Dave, what would your move be this evening?
I think I've shared this as part of discussions with the organizers. I think this is not an event that Parks and Recreation would necessarily put forward, but part of that's, I don't know if we had the creativity to come up with it. We typically like to utilize our public spaces, right? So put events on where people typically gather. So it's difficult for me to say this is something that we would put forward. I think it can be done in a safe and meaningful manner. I've had conversations with our police and fire. Similar to what I shared earlier, I do take, even though they're not as numerous, the concerns of those individuals into account. I think one thing that I want to clarify in the insurance piece is they've currently submitted an insurance certificate per the city's requirements. Those are the baseline requirements for an encroachment permit. And so, as Mr. Walsh shared, based on anticipated attendance, that number could increase to a higher amount than what's submitted. But I've shared that with the organizers as well, and they seem comfortable meeting that level. So, Councilmember Summers, to answer your question, I don't think this is an event that Parks and Recreation would propose. But that being said, I think it does have a lot of benefit from an arts and culture standpoint. But I think important to hear the concerns of the members, and I think the organizers have done a job to meet some of those concerns. Some of those still will be out there, and I think at the end of the day, if approved, those concerns will never go away until we see the results of the event.
Mr. Walsh.
Just to be clear, the actual approval of the permits, that's not on the agenda. So this has to come back regardless, but you can give whatever level of certainty and direction that you want to give, and hopefully that would give the organizers some comfort as to which direction you're going, but this does have to come back regardless.
All right. Anything else to add to the list, the list of the things to be done? I think you've named a few. I've named a few. More information, the better. I mean, do you feel like you have enough direction? I think we all have given different ideas about what we have, and maybe, and there's been a little bit of pushback, which I totally respect, that we wouldn't normally ask for a budget and those kinds of things. I guess in general, just assurances that there's either they have performed or the ability to perform. That's what I need to vote on this at the next council meeting.
I think that's clear. So just for my confirmation,
Okay.
sounds like the list that we have with the Parks and Recreation Commission to meet those stipulations, which we've had conversations on 2 of the 4. And what we can do is make sure that we bring back the exact dollar amount and requirements of that insurance level, as well as some deeper understanding of the financials.
All right.
I'm not willing to forfeit the potential for this community and this event, the viability, because that puts us a month later. And, either the promoters can speak to it or I'll speak to it. I just don't think that's fair. And I think to give them every chance for us to them to come back and us to be satisfied with what y'all want them to come back with. Otherwise, I make a motion, to approve that permit, conditional on whatever you feel like we need, or just non-conditional. Let's do things, get it done, make more money, create more energy, excitement. Let's bring it. I'll make a motion right now if I can get a second,
We're not disagreeing with that, Mr. Summers. The problem, as Mr. Walsh has elucidated, is that is not on the agenda, the permit part. So we don't really have the legal authority to make that motion at this point. The permit part of this decision is not on the agenda. It has to be agendized properly. That's the technical, unfortunate issue here. As I
What if
understand,
make a motion to
Mr.
put it on
Walsh.
the agenda right now? No? So the next one, so it's on the 22nd. Well, I'd just like to do whatever we can out of good faith tonight. If there's anything we can do, is there a recommendation, Ethan, that we can make a compromise here and make some movement?
So I think everyone's given the direction. I tell me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like folks are supportive of this, and they just want us to come back with the information that they requested, and that's what they need in order to kind of be in favor of it.
And we have all that info, we're clear on everything that people want to have, so we're 100% by the time we come back?
I think I'm clear unless I missed anything in that previous list that I mentioned off from council members.
I'm not clear on what you guys need.
I think you'll have to get together with Mr. Johns afterwards. I think he has clarity, and have a dialogue about what it is, what the things we talked about. Is that appropriate for them to contact you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
We've been main point of contact. I think I have clarity, and I think we'll be able to hit those approval levels.
So we can't say in an open city council meeting what you are requiring for us? I'm not clear, I'm not hearing other than insurance and maybe look at a budget or financials and a potential escrow.
I don't think that the escrow is
Not a requirement?
an idea. Yeah. As much comfort as you can get that they're the ability to perform in whatever way the staff deems appropriate. I think that's, I don't know. I mean, what is the staff's sort of theory that at some point, I mean, you have to have a deadline, right? When should they have this by the next meeting? And we're going to have that information by the time we vote again, right?
Correct. So I think having the information that you requested, ideally, a week before, so packet preparation. So we'll have a deadline to hit for that. I think the one level that we may not, because it has, I think it's out of the organizer's hands, is confirmation of the 501c3.
Right.
So I think having, that maybe have to be part of the, the level of conditional approval. But I think as far as the insurance requirements, sharing more information on financials, safety concerns, parking plans, that would all be in place prior to next meeting.
All right. Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on to the next item. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 11.4. Thank you. Let it clear up a little bit here.
Don't go for it, come on. But, okay.
All right. On to 11.4. Just to preface this, earlier today, the council interviewed applicants for the Active Transportation Sustainability Committee, the Library Board of Trustees, the Parks and Recreation Committee. Really a great conversation we had at City Hall. We have a lot of great applicants. We're still short one applicant, unfortunately, on Parks and Recreation. Encourage anybody interested in Parks and Recreation. They obviously do a great job. They are, the best in town. Everybody wants to be on that commission. Apparently, everybody didn't get the word yet, so we're looking for one other applicant there. I tend to, turn to my colleagues and just get some feedback. It's the mayor's appointment, of course, with the council's consent, and I'm ready to make that. I have my ideas about it. A couple of these bodies are, we have the exact match of applicants and openings, so that's easier. The Library Board of Trustees, we're not as fortunate. We have more applicants than openings, so that's a little bit more challenging. I tend to have deference to those who are serving and want to continue to serve. From time to time, there will be a member of the community that goes off the rails, and that in my thinking there changes. But to the most part, I'm deferential to folks who are already serving and reapply to reappoint them. But I'll hear out my colleagues on these matters. To let you know again, folks at home, Active Transportation and Sustainability Committee, the two applications we received were from Jeff Farmer, John Zimmerman, both are current members. On the Library Board of Trustees, we had 3 openings. We received 5 applications. Jillian Casey, Jonathan Ferruta, Juana Navarro, Elizabeth Newman, and David Ramos. Casey, Ferruta, and Navarro are current members. And then on the Parks and Recreation Committee, we had 2 openings, and we had 1 application received from Julie Jananian. Okay. I think I've introduced the item. Any other thoughts from my council members on the decision to appoint?
I'll just say quickly that it's unfortunate that we can't appoint every one who is there. So, and I will support your thoughts, and I just hope that the 2 members who are not appointed, we will see them again in other commissions or places.
Absolutely. I think that's, again, I can't say it enough. We thank our folks who are willing to serve on these committees. A lot of good work comes out of them, as we know. So any other thoughts from any of my colleagues? Mr. Summers, yes.
I mean, I think, Farmer, always good to have a New Yorker on the team, just for some balance, because we don't have that many of them around here. But I also think Jananian, really, she seems like she missed it. She's ready to come back and really kill it this season. She could be a great, rookie offender. I don't know. I think she should get a lot done. I liked her much, so I appreciate what you said there.
All right. Then I'm going to make the one motion, and I'll look for a second. So I'm going to move to reappoint Jeff Jeff Farmer and John Zimmerman to the ATSC. I'm going to move to appoint Jillian Casey, Jonathan Ferruta, and Juana Navarro to the Library Board of Trustees, and move to appoint Julie Jananian to the one of 2 openings on the Parks and Recreation Commission. And look for a second, please.
I'll second the motion.
All right. There's a motion by the mayor and a second by Mr. Summers. Thank you, Mr. Summers. Roll call, please.
Mayor Doring.
Yes.
Councilmember Summers. Spataroto.
Yes.
Barrick.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. And I appreciate your input on these folks. Again, we have an opening on the Parks and Recreation Commission. There's some folks who applied the last time because there were a number of applicants the last time. Maybe we should reach out to some of those folks. Thank you. I I'm not sure if anyone's in the mood to, unless it strikes them to give a liaison report right now. I have one, but I think because of time, I'll wait till next time.
Can I make one comment, just to
I'm sorry.
mention
Go ahead.
about the Planning Commission? There are
Yes.
several applicants. We're
Yes.
just letting everybody know that the interviews will take place on a date to be determined in July, with
Okay.
appointments on July 22nd.
All right. How many applicants?